should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area. This should be played. This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Due to some violent content, parental discretion is advised.
Shabbat Shalom, family. Salama, Siyemi, Shalom, family abroad. Sure enough, appreciate y'all for tuning on in to Red Letter Rap and the Roundtable discussion. We're going to continue reading Jasher tonight. Go ahead and say what's up, family.
Shalom, family. Shalom.
Shalom.
How y'all doing? Shabbat shalom.
All right. Did you want to say a little more, Sharita?
No, I'm fine. Shalom, family. How are y'all doing?
Yeah, like
You gonna put me on the spot?
yeah, you just said a little shalom. I'm like,
You know,
all right.
well, see, y'all know I'm gonna talk a whole lot through this whole thing. So y'all just let me be quiet when I can be quiet, okay?
I
we
hear
just
you,
ready to
sis.
get into the
Yeah,
the book, you know.
definitely ready to get into the book. So let me go
Find
click
some
on
of
this
these
screen share.
cornerstones.
Oh, see, we do got to leave sis alone on that. We got to let her call that on out. Yeah, that is her thing. I got to give it to her. So I'm gonna stop saying it. Let sis just call it out.
Right.
I'm trying to get this screen share going. Like I said, this thing's been acting a little slow. And I don't know if it's cutting up on their side right now or not, because my little screen thing just froze. All right. Well, daggone. See, so I'm talking about. I guess go ahead and put a 1 in there if we're still sounding good. If it's chopping up, let us know. Definitely. Waiting on the ones to come on in. Seems like it's doing all right. 1, got you. Good looking out, Camp 2 player. Shabbat Shalom. 1 from Larry Carnell Bryce. Shabbat Shalom, family. All right, so let's go ahead and get it on in. Since we got a good picture here. We'll go ahead and blow this on up again. And I'm hoping that this right here is blowed up enough for everybody to read. So as a quick little recap, we saw that how they built the Tower of Babel. We saw how Abraham's father Terah had frustrated Nimrod with giving him his own medicine back by asking him pretty much the same question, but in the form of a riddle, talking about Nimrod wanted his son and gonna pay him for it. And he was like, well, see, now so-and-so asked me to buy this horse from me, this prize horse that I got from you. And I got to ask you if I can sell it to him. And then he's like, well, why would you even want to sell the horse in the first place? Are you short on money? You know what I'm saying? And what is, gold and silver to you versus this fine horse? And then he came back at him with the essentially, well, if I sell you my son, who's going to inherit me? We're already under your power. We're already under your control. But then, he slickly said, well, let me just go back and talk to my family about this. And then I'll just give me 3 days. So he gave him 3 days and all of that. And he brought him a child from one of his handmaids that Nimrod ended up killing and thinking it was Abraham. So after that, he snuck Abraham off to a cave, had him there for him and his mother there for about 10 years, I believe it was. And after that 10 years, he got to go learn from Noah and Shem the ways of the Most High. So that's a little bit of the recap and things on some of what we just left off. Let's go ahead and start back up right here, chapter 10. And Peleg, son of Eber, died in those days, in the 48th year of the life of Abram, son of Terah. And all the days of Peleg were 120 or 239 years. Goodness. And when Yahuwah had scattered the sons of men on account of their sin at the tower, behold, they spread forth into many divisions, and all the sons of men were dispersed into four corners of the earth. And all the families became each according to its language, its land, or its city. And the sons of men built many cities according to their families, and all the places where they went, and throughout the earth where Yahuwah had scattered them. And some of them built cities and places from which they were after extirpated. Now, see, this person that typed this on, I would say after they were dispersed again, and they called the cities after their own names or the names of their children or after their particular occurrences. And the sons of Japheth, the son of Noah, went and built themselves cities and places where they were scattered, and they called all their cities after their names. And the sons of Japheth were divided upon the face of the earth into many divisions and languages. And these are the sons of Japheth according to their families: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, Tiras. These are the children of Japheth according to their generations. And the children of Gomer according to their cities were Frankum, who dwelled in the land of Franza, by the river Franza, by the river Sinai. See, this is why I like Jasher so much. He can ready to just spill the beans on everybody. So pay attention. Pay attention to the names of these locations, family, because once again, Jasher just tells too much. And the children of Gomer, according to their cities, were Frankum, who dwelled in the land of Franza, by the river Franza, by the river Sinai. And the children of Rippath are the Bartonim. Yeah?
Why is adding up?
What's that? Kind of breaking up a little. Go ahead.
Hold on just a second. Your cursor is not matching up with what you're saying.
Oh. Let's see here. See, that's what I'm kind of talking about. Like with it being a little slow tonight. So I'm hoping everything stays clean. But you're watching the screen from us in the chat, right? Or us in StreamYard. And you're saying it's not matching up as I'm going? Or are you watching from YouTube? Sis? Okay, you're muted again. Wow.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, that's clipping up pretty deep. Well, I don't know, probably just the wire. But so are you watching from inside of StreamYard, or are you watching from YouTube?
I did it from YouTube. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. See, that's why you're behind.
Okay. All right.
All right. Yeah. So let's go back up here. And the children of Gomer, according to their cities, were Frankum, who dwelled in the land of Franza, by the river Franza, by the river Sanaa. And the children of Riphath are Bartonim, who dwell in the land of Bartonia, by the river Leda, which empties its waters in the great sea Gihon, that is Oceanus. And the children of Togarmah are 10 families, and these are their names: Buzar, Parzanak, Balger, Elikanim, Rogbib, Tarki, Bid, Zebuk, Ongul, and Tilmaz. All these spread and rested in the north and built themselves cities. And they called their cities after their own names. Those are they who abide by the rivers Hithlah and Idalak unto this day. And the families of Anguli, Balger, and Parzanak, they dwell by the great river Dubni. And the names of their cities are also according to their own names. And the children of Javan are the Javanim, or the Javanim, who dwell in the land of Macedonia. And the children of Midiar are the Oralim, that dwell in the land of Cursan. And the children of Tubal are those that dwell in the land of Tuscana, by the river Pashia. And the children of Meshach are the Shebashni, and the children of Tiras are Rushash, Cushni, and Angelis. All these and built themselves, all these went and built themselves cities. Those are the cities that are situated by the sea Jabus, by the river Cura, which empties itself into the river Tragan. And the children of Elisha are the Almanim, and they also went and built themselves cities. Those are the cities situate between the mountains of Job and Shabbathmo, and of them were the people of Lombardy, who dwell opposite the mountains of Job and Shabbathmo, and they conquered the land of Italia and remained there unto this day. And the children of Chittim are the Romim, who dwell in the valley of Canopia by the river Tibru. And the children of Dudanim are those who dwell in the cities of the sea Gihon in the land of Bordna. These are the families of the children of Japheth according to their cities and languages when they were scattered after the tower. And they called their cities after their names and occurrences. And these were the names of all their cities according to their families, which they built in those days after the tower. So I guess before we definitely go on, like I said, pay attention to those names. I'm pretty certain some of these lands jumped off the page at y'all and let you just for further, confirmation of who's who. These different lands and territories of the people of Japheth, things like that. And some of these names like Lombardy, things like that. So that Lombardy trophy come from,
Right.
them
Right.
people. Okay.
And I think it's real cool that, how we're reading it, that, to identify, because, a lot of these names are mentioned in a lot of future prophecy, like Magog, Gomer, it's a lot of stuff. And that's why I was saying, that when they want us to, skip over these lineages, this who begot who, and, this is basically, bringing out, who is who, you know what I mean? So when you just jump to the story, or when you jump to the story and now they got a prophecy out about somebody, you don't know who they talking about.
Because that's what the usual Eurocentric church does. They'll just skip right on past the lineages, and for those I give a shout out to my brother Dante and those that
Right.
admit that straight up, look, I'm not trying to butcher nobody's name. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's one thing. That's one thing. That's being straight up, and real. Other than that, if they're in a so-called pastoral, ministerial position, things like that, and they're claiming to lead the whole flock, then you kind of put it
Right.
upon yourself to read those things and read those things out loud.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So it's a big difference. You know what I'm saying? Because Brother Dante, he did not say that he's telling trying to do what the folks inside the church are doing. He's not claiming those same aspects. So that's why we give the brother grace. Like, that's all right, bro. We get it. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to
Right.
read that part, we'll go ahead and read it. You know what I'm saying? At least you showed
Right.
us the scripture and leaving it
Right.
up to us to
Right.
go back and read it. So still, shout out and salute, man. Ain't no knocking that,
Right.
brother.
And I caught that show today. That was a great show because pretty much he was covering and revealing a lot of things that we probably gonna read over today.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, some of those. Yeah, definitely some of those. So let's go ahead and keep on going to the children of Ham. And the children of Ham were Cush, Mitzrayim, Phut, Canaan, according to their generation in cities. And these went and built themselves cities as they found it fit for them. And they called their cities after the names of their fathers, Cush, Mitzrayim, Phut, and Canaan. And the children of Mitzrayim are the Ludim, or Ludim, Anamim, Lehabim, Naphtuhim, Pathrushim, Kalkuhim, Kafruhim, 7 families. All these dwell by the river Sihor, that is the brook of Egypt, and they built themselves cities and called them after their own names. And the children of Pathros, Kasla, intermarried together, and from them went forth the Pelishtim, or the Philistines, the Pelishtim, Azathim, and the Gerarim, and the Githim, and the Ekranim, all 5 families. These also built themselves cities, and they called their cities after the names of their fathers unto this day. And the children of Canaan also built themselves cities, and they called their cities after their names, 11 cities, and others without number. And 4 men from the family of Ham went to the land of the plain. These are the names of the 4 men: Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim. And these men built themselves 4 cities in the land of the plain, and they called the names of their cities after their own names. Then they and their children and all belonging to them dwelt in those cities, and they were fruitful and multiplied greatly and dwelt peaceably. Excuse me. And Seir, the son of Hur, son of Hivi, son of Canaan, went and found a valley opposite to Mount Paran, and he built a city there, and he and his 7 sons and his household dwelt there. And he called the city which he built Seir, according to his name. That is the land of Seir unto this day. These are the families of the children of Ham, according to their languages and cities, when they were scattered to their countries after the tower. And some of the children of Shem, son of Noah, father of all the children of Eber, also went and built themselves cities in the places wherein they were scattered, and they called their cities after their names. And the sons of Shem were Elam, Ashur, Arpachshad, Lud, Aram, and Aram. And they built themselves cities and called the names of all their cities after their names. And Ashur, son of Shem, and his children and household went forth at that time, a very large body of them, and they went to a distant land that they found. And they met with a very extensive valley in the land that they went to, and they built themselves 4 cities, and they called them after their own names and occurrences. And these are the names of the cities which the children of Ashur built: Nineveh, Rezin, Calah, and Rehoboth. Let me try that one again. Rehoboth. Okay, I'll deal with that one. And the children of Ashur dwell there unto this day. And the children of Aram also went and built themselves a city. And they called the name of the city Uz, after their eldest brother. And they dwell therein. That is the land of Uz to this day. In the second year after the Tower of Man from the house of Ashur, whose name is Bela, went from the land of Nineveh to sojourn with his household wherever he could find a place. And they came until opposite the cities of the plain against Sodom, and they dwelt there. And the man rose up and built there a small city and called its name Bela, after his name, that is the land of Zoar, unto this day. And these are the families of the children of Shem according to their language in cities after they were scattered upon the earth after the tower. And every kingdom, city, and family of families of the children of Noah built themselves many cities after this. And they established governments in all their cities in order to be regulated by their orders. So did all the families of the children of Noah forever. Chapter 11. And Nimrod, son of Cush, was still in the land of Shinar, and he reigned over it and dwelt there, and he built cities in the land of Shinar. And these are the names of the 4 cities which he built, and he called their names after the occurrences that happened to them in the building of the tower. And he called the first Babel, saying, because Yahuwah there confounded the language of the whole earth. And the name of the second he called Ireh, because from there Elohim dispersed them. And I think this here would be more like, would sound kind of more like error, like error. Because remember, family, that CH is going to be a double H sound. So there's times I'm going to be reading this to where, like down here, ached. You know, I'm not doing the ashad or ashed. I don't see it that way. You know, that's just me. Now, once again, it's my disclaimer. I don't claim to have the best pronunciation of these, and I'm open for the correction. So if I need be corrected, I'm open for it, and that's cool. All right. So once again, because Yahuwah confounded their language of the whole earth. In the name of the second, he called Ere or Era, because from there Elohim dispersed them. And the third he called Ahed, saying there was a great battle at that place. And the fourth he called Kalna, because his princes and mighty men were consumed there. And they vexed Yahuwah. They rebelled and transgressed against him. And when Nimrod had built these cities in the land of Shinar, he placed in them the remainder of his people, his princes, and his mighty men that were left in his kingdom. Appreciate that, Cam, too. And Nimrod dwelt in Babel, and he there renewed his reign over the rest of his subjects, and he reigned securely. And the subjects and princes of Nimrod called his name Amraphel, or Amraphel. There we go. Saying that at the tower his princes and men fell through his means. And notwithstanding this, Nimrod did not return to Yahuwah, and he continued in wickedness, in teaching wickedness to the sons of men, and Mardon, his son, was worse than his father, and continued to add to the abominations of his father. And he caused the sons of men to sin, therefore it is said, from the wicked go forth wickedness. And at that time, there was war between the families of the children of Ham, as they were dwelling in the cities which they had built. And Hadorlamar, king of Elam, went away from the families of the children of Ham, and he fought with them, and he subdued them. And he went to the 5 cities of the plain, and he fought against them, and he subdued them. And they were under his control. And they served him 12 years, and they gave him yearly tax. And at the time, Nahor, son of Serug, in the 49th year of his life of Abram, son of Terah, In the 50th year of the life of Abram, son of Terah, Abram came forth from the house of Noah and went to his father's house. And Abram knew Yahuwah, and he went in his ways and instructions, and Yahuwah his Elohim was with him. And Terah his father was in those days still captain of the host of King Nimrod, and he still followed strange gods. And Abram came to his father's house and saw 12 Elohim standing there in their temples. And the anger of Abram was kindled when he saw these images in his father's house. And Abram said, As Yahuwah liveth, these images shall not remain in my father's house. So shall Yahuwah, who created me, do unto me, if in 3 days' time I do not break them all. And Abram went forth from them, and his anger burned within him. And Abram hastened and went to the chamber of his father's outer court. And he found his father sitting in the court, and all his servants with him. And Abram came and sat before him. And Abram asked his father, saying, Father, tell me, where is the Elohim who created heaven and earth, and all the sons of men upon earth? And who created thee and me? And Terah answered his son Abram and said, Behold, those who created us are all with us in the house. And Abram said to his father, My Adonai, show them to me, I pray thee. And Terah brought Abram in the chamber of the inner court. And Abram saw, and behold, the whole room was full of Elohim of wood and stone, 12 great images, and others less than they without number. And Terah said to his son, Behold, these are they which made all thou seest upon earth, and which created me and thee and all mankind. And Terah bowed down to his Elohims, and he then went away from them. And Abram, his son, went away with him. And when Abram had gone from them, he went to his mother and sat before her. And he said to his mother, Behold, my father has shown me those who made heaven and earth and all the sons of men. Now therefore hasten and fetch a kid from the flock, and make of it savory meat, that I may bring to my father's Elohim as an offering for them to eat. Perhaps I may thereby become acceptable unto them. And his mother did so, and she fetched a kid, and made savory meat thereof, and brought it to Abram. And Abram took the savory meat from his mother, and brought it before his father's Elohim. And he drew nigh to them, that they might eat. And Terah his father did not know of it. And Abram saw on the day when he was sitting amongst them, that they had no voice, no hearing, no motion, and not one of them could stretch forth his hand to eat. And Abram mocked them, and said, Surely the savory meat that I prepared has not pleased them, or perhaps it was too little for them, and for that reason they would not eat. Therefore tomorrow I will prepare fresh savory meat, better and more plentiful than this, in order that I may see the results. And it was on the next day that Abram directed his mother concerning the savory meat. And his mother rose and fetched 3 fine kids from the flock, and she made them some excellent savory meat, such as her son was fond of. And she gave it to her son Abram, and Terah his father did not know of it. And Abram took the savory meat from his mother and brought it before his father's Elohim into the chamber. And he came nigh unto them, and that they might eat. And he placed it before them. And Abram sat before them all day, thinking perhaps they might eat. And Abram viewed them, and behold, they had neither voice nor hearing, nor did one of them stretch forth his hand to eat the meat, or to the meat to eat. And in the evening on that day, the house of Abram was clothed with the spirit of Elohim. And he called out and said, Woe unto my father, and this wicked generation, whose hearts are all inclined to vanity, who serve these idols of wood and stone, which can neither eat, smell, hear, nor speak, who have mouths without speech, eyes without sight, ears without hearing, hands without feeling, and legs which cannot move. Like them are those that made them and that trust in them. And when Abram saw all these things, his anger was kindled against his father. And he hasted and took a hatchet in his hand and came into the chamber of the Elohim, and he broke all his father's Elohim. And when he had done breaking the images, he placed the hatchet in the hand of the great Elohim which was there before him. And when he went out, and Terah his father had came home, for he had heard at the door the sound of the striking of the hatchet. So Terah came into the house to know what this was about. And Terah, having heard the noise of the hatchet in the room of images, ran into the room to the images, and he met Abram going out. And Terah entered the room and found all the idols fallen down and broken, and the hatchet in the hand of the largest, which was not broken. And the savory meat which Abram his son had made was still before them. And when Terah saw this, his anger was greatly kindled, and he hastened and went from the room to Abram. And he found Abram his son still sitting in the house. And he said to him, What is this work thou hast done to my Elohims? And Abram answered Terah his father and said, Not so, my Adonai, for I brought savory meat before them, and when I came nigh to them with the meat that they might eat, they all at once stretched forth their hands to eat before the great one had put forth his own hand to eat. And the large one saw their works that they did before him, and his anger was violently kindled against them. And he went and took the hatchet and was in the house and came to them and broke them all. And behold, the hatchet is yet in his hand, as thou seest. And Terah's anger was greatly kindled against his son Abram when he spoke this. And Terah said to Abram his son in his anger, What is this tale that thou hast told? Thou speakest lies to me. Is there in these Elohim spirit, soul, or power to do all that hast told me? Are they not wood and stone? And have I not myself made them? And canst thou speak such lies, saying that the large Elohim that was with them smote them? Is it thou that didst place the hatchet in the hands, and then sayest, He smote them all? And Abram answered his father and said to him, And how canst thou then serve these idols in whom there is no power to do anything? Can those idols in which thou trustest deliver thee? Can they hear thy prayers when thou callest upon them? Can they deliver thee from the hands of thy enemies? Or will they fight thy battles for thee against thy enemies? That thou shouldest serve wood and stone, which can't neither speak nor hear? See, real quick, family. See, that idol worship, you know what I'm saying? And it's real good. We see right here how Abram had to confront his father about this idol worship. And this right here should be something that a lot more people hopefully would take into consideration, along with their, so-called spiritual path. Right. These idols that they bow down to, these different statues and monuments or whatever, all these creations, they're all creations. Right. They can't do nothing for you besides entertain you with the visual aspect of them. That's it. They can't do nothing else.
Right. And but if I could piggyback on that real quick, man,
go ahead.
The wood and stone really sticks out to me. And another part that sticks out to me is that, Abram, he basically the way he did it was the way, he basically got his father to confess the same things that he was saying, like they don't speak and they don't talk, they don't rise up and eat, you know, they don't do nothing, you know. And basically you know, I was like, you know, that part kind of stuck with me because Abram was just realizing that, you know, because he was raised by Noah, basically. Well, he was at the home of Noah first, you know what I mean, and the home of Shem, and then he came here, and then they preaching this another gospel, if you want to say, you know what I'm saying, and he's looking at it like, nah, this can't be it, you know, it don't. I don't know. It just really got me that he got his father to even confess that they don't, you know, they don't move, they don't do nothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he admitted that he made them. He said, "Didn't I make
Right?
these?"
Yeah, yeah. Didn't he make them right? That part. That part.
You got anything,
Now
sis?
this is not the first time we see how um, reverse psychology is playing out here in Jasher. Just in chapter 10, we saw how y'all got to give me the name. I'm horrible with the name. Went to after the king asked him to give up his son. He did some reverse psychology on him as well
Yeah,
by saying,
Abram's father, Terah.
Right, right.
yeah, yeah. So definitely the reverse psychology is without you having to be angry or blunt, just choosing your words carefully to make someone else think about what it is that they're doing points out the obvious to them when they have to say it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that is being wise, you know what I'm saying? Wise as a serpent, yet harmless as a dove. You know, bringing up a conversational piece to where whoever you're talking to, you have to say it in such a way to when they say it back out loud, it's like, oh dang, that is messed up. That they really don't make sense.
Right.
I'm in, you
Right.
know, then they get to, you know, repent from that and turn from those ways.
Most definitely.
Hey man, good stuff, y'all. Good stuff. All right. And now surely it is not good for thee, nor for the sons of men that are connected with thee to do these things. Hold on, I'm gonna repeat this again because it's about to get in. And now surely it is not good for thee, nor the sons of men that are connected with thee to do these things. Are you so silly, so foolish, or so short of understanding that you will serve wood and stone and do after this manner? And forget Yahuwah Elohim, who made heaven and earth, who created you in the earth, and thereby bring a great evil upon your souls in this manner by serving stone and wood. Do not our fathers in days of old sin in this matter? And Yahuwah Elohim of the universe brought the waters of the flood upon them and destroyed the whole earth. And how can you continue to do this and serve Elohim of wood and stone, who cannot hear or speak or deliver you from oppression, thereby bringing down the anger of the Elohim of the universe upon you? Now, therefore, my father, refrain from this, and bring not evil upon thy soul and the souls of thy household. And Abram hastened and sprang from before his father, and took the hatchet from his father's largest idol, which Abram broke it and ran away. So he finished the job before he walked out the door.
Right, right.
He broke all the rest
Right.
of them and then finished the job before he walked out on his dad after speaking life to him. And Terah, seeing all that Abram had done, hastened to go from his house. And he went to the king, and he came before Nimrod and stood before him. And he bowed down to the king. And the king said, what dost thou want? And he said, I beseech thee, my lord, to hear me. Now 50 years back, a child was born to me. And thus has he done to my Elohim. And thus has he spoken. Now, therefore, my Adonai and King, send for him, that he may come before thee and judge him according to the law, that we may be delivered from his evil. And the king sent 3 men of his servants, and they went and brought Abram before the king. And Nimrod and all his princes and servants were that day sitting before him. and Terah sat also before them. And the king said to Abram, what is this that thou hast done to thy father and to his Elohim? And Abram answered the king in the words that he spoke to his father, and he said, the large Elohim that was with them in the house did to them what thou hast heard. And the king said to Abram, had they power to speak and eat and do as thou hast said? And Abram answered the king, saying, and if there be no power in them, why dost thou serve them and cause the sons of men to err through thy follies? Dost thou imagine that they can deliver thee or do anything small or great, that thou shouldest serve them? And why wilt thou not sense the Elohim of the whole universe, who created thee, in whose power it is to kill and keep alive? O foolish, simple, and ignorant king, woe unto thee forever.
Wow. Hey.
I love it, boy. I love it. I love it when they go in. I love it when they go in like this.
A lot of smack talking.
I thought thou wouldest, he said, I thought thou wouldest teach thy servants the upright way, but thou hast done this. But, oh my goodness, but thou hast done this, but hast filled the whole earth with thy sins and the sins of thy people who have followed thy ways. Dost thou not know, or hast thou not heard, that this evil which thou doest, our ancestors sinned therein in days of old? And the eternal Elohim brought the waters of the flood upon them and destroyed them all, and also destroyed the whole earth on their account. And wilt thou and thy people rise up now and do like unto this work, in order to bring down the anger of Yahuwah Elohim of the universe, and to bring evil upon thee and the whole earth? Now, therefore, put away this evil deed which thou doest, and serve the Elohim of the universe, as thy soul is in his hands, and then it will be well with thee. Let me read that part again. And serve the Elohim of the universe, as thy soul is in his hands, and then it will be well with thee. And if thy wicked heart will not hearken to my words, to cause thee to forsake the evil ways and to serve the eternal Elohim, then wilt thou die in shame in the latter days. Thou, thy people, and all who are connected with thee, hearing thy words or walking in thy evil ways. And when Abram had ceased speaking before the king and princes, Abram lifted up his eyes to the heavens, and he said, Yahuwah seeth all the wicked, and he will judge them. And when the king heard the words of Abram, he ordered him to be put into prison. And Abram was 10 days in prison. And at the end of those days, the king ordered that all the kings, princes, and governors of different provinces and the sages should come before him. And they sat before him, and Abram was still sitting in the house of confinement. And the king said to the princes and sages, have you heard what Abram the son of Terah has done to his father? Thus has he done to him, and I ordered him to be brought before me, and thus has he spoken. His heart did not misgive him, neither did he stir in my presence. And behold, now he is confined in the prison. And therefore decide what judgment is due to this man who reviled the king, who spoke and did all the things you heard. And they all answered the king, saying, the man who reviled the king should be hanged upon a tree. But having done all the things that he said, and having despised our Elohim, he must therefore be burned to death. For this is the law in this matter. If it pleaseth the king to do this, let him order his servants to kindle a fire both night and day, and in thy brick furnace, and then we will cast this man into it. And the king did so. And he commanded his servants that they should prepare a fire for 3 days, and 3 nights in the king's furnace, that is in Kasdim. And the king ordered them to take Abram from prison and bring him out to be burned. And all the king's servants, princes, lords, governors, and judges, and all the inhabitants of the land, about 900,000 men, stood opposite the furnace to see Abram. And all the women and little ones crowded upon the roofs and towers to see what was doing with Abram. And they all stood together at a distance. And there was not a man left that did not come on that day to behold the scene. And when Abram was come, the conjurers of the king and the sages saw Abram. And they cried out to the king, saying, Our sovereign Adonai, surely this is the man whom we know to have been the child at whose birth the great star swallowed the 4 stars, which we declared to the king now 50 years since. And behold, now his father has also transgressed thy commands, and mocked thee by bringing thee another child, which thou didst kill. And when the king heard their words, he was exceedingly wroth, and he ordered Terah to be brought before him. And the king said, Hast thou heard what the conjurers have spoken? Now tell me truly, how didst thou, and if thou shalt speak true, thou shalt be acquitted. And seeing that the king's anger was so much kindled, Terah said to the king, My Adonai and king, thou hast heard the truth. What the sages have spoken is right. And the king said, How couldst thou do this thing, to transgress my orders, and to give me a child that thou didst not beget, and to take value for him? And Terah answered the king, Because my tender feelings were excited for my son at that time. And I took a son of my handmaid, and I brought him to the king. And the king said, Who advised thee to this? Tell me, do not hide aught from me, and then thou shalt not die. And Terah was greatly terrified in the king's presence. And he said to the king, It was Haran, my eldest son, who advised me to this. And Haran was in those days that Abram was born 32 years old. So he was 32 when Abram was born. He's going to blame all this on 32-year-old Haran back in the day that he told him to do all this. But Haran did not advise his father to anything, for Terah said this to the king in order to deliver his soul from the king, for he feared greatly. And the king said to Terah, Haran thy son, who advised thee to this, shall die through fire with Abram, for the sentence of death is upon him for having rebelled against the king's desire in doing this thing. And Haran at that time felt inclined to follow the ways of Abram, and he kept it within himself. And Haran said in his heart, Behold now, the king has seized Abram on account of these things which Abram did. And it shall come to pass that if Abram prevail over the king, I will follow him. But if the king prevail, I will go after the king. And when Terah had spoken this to the king concerning Haran his son, the king ordered Haran to be seized with Abram. And they brought them both, Abram and Haran his brother, and cast them into the fire. And all the inhabitants of the land and the king's servants and princes and all the women and little ones were there, standing that day over them. And the king's servants took Abram and his brother, and they stripped them of all their clothes except their lower garments, which were upon them. And they bound their hands and feet with linen cords. And the servants of the king lifted them up and cast them both into the furnace. And Yahuwah loved Abram, and he had compassion over him. And Yahuwah came down and delivered Abram from the fire, and he was not burned. But all the cords which they bound him were burned, while Abram remained and walked about in the fire.
Wow.
See, this is why we got to serve him. This is why we got to serve him. This is why we got to be obedient to him. We have to make a whole new, commitment and relationship with the Father. And I'm not here to condemn anybody that's starting over or anything like that. And I'm trying to remember. Matter of fact, it was brother Black Task the other night that was saying on Sister E's channel that it's never too late to start again. And I agree with that
Right.
wholeheartedly. You know what I'm saying? Shalom to my brother. Shalom. You know what I'm saying? So we have to remake this commitment with the Father, because with this kind of faith and walking and dwelling with him and in his ways to delight in him, there is no telling what he will deliver you from, even fire. So
Not just fire, but his father. I mean, he delivered him from the first death from his father by changing his father's mind and not killing him when he was born. And then he delivered him again from death in the fire.
mm-hmm.
And what I hear, some of those commandments, he gave false witness against one of his other sons. And was he murdered or not in
Kind of
this
cut out there, sis.
particular? And he delivered his other son up because
There we
he
go.
bore false witness against.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And there's just so much to cover in here, because it's just like, just any, biblical believer, what story does this remind you of? You know what I mean? What story does this remind you of? Ain't this
Oh
the three
yeah.
boys? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Ain't this the three boys? It's like prophecy was always being told, but you don't know this part about Abram. You know what I mean? And then in the sense of it, you got to sit there and think about, okay, when you look at his family, how his daddy just turned him in a way.
Mhm.
When the Most High called him, well, I guess he was just like, I'm going, I'm out. You know, why not? I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
follow you because you know what I'm saying. I'm gonna follow the Most High because the Most High saved him all those times, and his father just turned him in. His kindred was like nothing to him. I mean, I'm pretty sure after this.
I mean, he was scared. He was super scared, and he shouldn't have been. That's the point.
Right,
He was more scared of the king, more scared of Nimrod than of the Most High.
right. That part.
Mm-hmm. That's why we don't find, fear in man. That's why I like that thing on KB. Don't nobody own us, and it to some people it may not sound so right to them, but he said it's better to lose trust in God than to win fear in man.
Right.
And it's not really losing trust in God, because, just like throughout scripture, we're told whether we live or die, we will serve the Most High.
Most High.
So even if you on
Hallelujah.
your deathbed and dying, I guess that'd be the part where someone might lose a little trust in God. But at the same time, I doubt it's enough to, for those of us that are truly serving him, we understand. We understand the circumstances of why we are on our deathbed or in that situation. We don't just idly blame the Most High for any of those things, which we,
Right.
saw in Job, what I'm saying, where he was getting, talked to from his people, trying to tempt him to raise his hand to the Most High in anger, and he wouldn't do it. So that part, you keep your faith in him, you understand the situation that you in. He makes it kind of clear to you, why you're in that situation. He don't just allow you to be punished and, or something done to you. And it's just, for no reason. No, there's always a reason.
Yeah, you gotta
Always.
praise him. You gotta praise him in the trial. Praise him during the
Mhm.
trial. Praise him for the trial.
Yep. All right. So, and Haran died when they cast him into the fire, and he was burned to ashes, for his heart was not perfect with Yahuwah. And those men who cast him into the fire, the flame of the fire spread over them, and they were burned, and 12 men of them died. And Abram walked in the midst of the fire 3 days and 3 nights, and all the servants of the king saw him walking in the fire. And they came and told the king, saying, Behold, we have seen Abram walking about in the midst of the fire, and even the lower garments which are upon him are not burned, but the cord with which he was bound is burned. And when the king heard their words, his heart fainted, and he would not believe them. So we sent other faithful princes to see this matter. And they went and saw it, and told to the king, and told it to the king. And the king rose to go and see it. And he saw Abram walking to and fro in the midst of the fire. And he saw Haran's body burned. And the king wondered greatly. And the king ordered Abram to be taken out from the fire. And his servants approached to take him out, and they could not, for the fire was round about, and the flame ascending toward them from the furnace. And the king's servants fled from it. And the king rebuked them, saying, Make haste and bring Abram out of the fire, that you shall not die. And the servants of the king again approached to bring Abram out, and the flames came upon them and burned their faces, so that 8 of them died. And when the king saw that his servants could not approach the fire, lest they should be burned, the king called to Abram, O servant of the Elohim, who is in heaven, go forth from the midst of the fire, and come hither before me. And Abram hearkened to the voice of the king, and he went forth from the fire, and came and stood before the king. And Abram came out. And when Abram came out to the king, the king and all his servants saw Abram coming before the king with his lower garments upon him, for they were not burned, but the cord with which he was bound was burned. And the king said to Abram, How is it that thou hast not burned in the fire? And Abram said to the king, The Elohim of heaven and earth, in whom I trust, and who has all in his power, he delivered me from the fire into which thou didst cast me. And Haran, the brother of Abram, was burned to ashes, and they sought for his body, and they found it consumed. And Haran was 82 years old when he died in the fire of Kasdim. And the king, princes, and inhabitants of the land, seeing that Abram was delivered from the fire, they came and bowed down to Abram. And Abram said to them, Do not bow down to me, but bow down to the Elohim of the world who made you, and serve him, and go in his ways, for it is he who delivered me from out of this fire. And it is he who created the souls and spirits, or ruach, of all men, and formed man in his mother's womb, and brought him forth into the world. And it is he who will deliver those who trust in him from all pain. Tell him.
Man, hey, I just
Tell
want to
him.
say a little quick one, real quick. Just, you know, wrapping my mind about around this, how it's jumping off the page. Like, this is like, and I keep referring back to Abraham, that this is the story of his faith. You know what I mean? Like, that's why he was so faithful, and the Most High called Abram his friend, because that's how much faith he had. You know what I mean? So and this is what all we are reading right now. This is before the Most High called him and told him to leave his kindred, and he went with it. He grabbed it, he got Sarah, and he left. And this was before all that. So this is like Abram. They left this all out the Bible, and we never get how Abram was, just out there, just following though, just following the voice of the Most High. You know what I mean? Like, he already had this element before he left, that he would follow the voice of the Most High. And that 3 days part keep coming up. Remember, he said when he first got, he said, if I don't destroy these idols in 3 days, and then they did the fire for 3 days, and then he walked around in the fire for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What you got, sis?
Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I just went out there. Um, Definitely, God shows us signs of where we're supposed to be who we're supposed to hang around with. Um, he, even his own family members, they wasn't cutting mustard, for lack of a better word, and they were doing things they didn't have any business doing. And we all can relate to having family members that are up to things that they shouldn't be doing.
Right.
No, we don't want to see them and do all that, but for our own, safety, for our own spirituality, we have to separate ourselves from people, even if they're our own mothers, our own fathers, our own brothers, because they're not living a righteous life. I mean, it's so easy for us to especially be swayed by our family members, because I'm sure that his father thought that's what he would do by having all these idols around the house. But instead, he was going to, condemn his whole household for what he was doing. So, most definitely, he had to be out of that situation.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for the gift, Brother Larry Carnell Bryce. Very much appreciate you, family. Um, Another thing about this right here that should jump off the page to us is to show us the testimony and the reason why Abram's seed was chosen to be the seed that would take over the whole earth.
Right.
It's his seed that will be multiplied, you know. So that's something that as we keep on going, these are going to come step out and just just tell us each time. So let's go ahead and keep it on rolling just a little bit more, family. And this thing seemed very wonderful in the eyes of the king and princes that Abram was saved from the fire and that Haran was burned. And the king gave Abram many presents, and he gave him his 2 head servants from the king's house. The name of one Oni, and the other was Eliezer. That's right. That's right. I see you there, Cam, too. And all the kings, princes, and servants gave Abram many gifts in silver and gold and pearl. And the king and his princes sent him away, and he went in peace. And Abram went forth from the king in peace, and many of the king's servants followed him. About 300 men joined him. And Abram returned on that day and went to his father's house, he and the men that followed him. And Abram served Yahuwah his Elohim all the days of his life. And he walked in his ways and followed his law. And from that day forward, Abram inclined the hearts of the sons of men to serve Yahuwah. And at that time, Nahor and Abram's going out from the fire, that is in the 52nd year of his life. Behold, King Nimrod sat in Babel upon the throne. And the king fell asleep and dreamed that he was standing with his troops and hosts in a valley opposite the king's furnace. And he lifted up his eyes and saw a man in the likeness of Abram coming forth from the furnace. And that he came and stood before the king with his drawn sword, and then sprang to the king with his sword. When the king fled from the man, for he was afraid, and while he was running, the man threw an egg upon the king's head, and the egg became a great river. And the king dreamed that all his troops sank in that river and died. And the king took flight with 3 men who were before him, and he escaped. And the king looked at these men, and they were clothed in princely dresses, and the garments of kings, and the appearance and majesty of kings. And while they were running, the river again turned to an egg before the king. And there came forth from the egg a young bird, which came before the king, and flew at his head and plucked out the king's eye. And the king was grieved at the sight, and he awoke out of his sleep, and his spirit was agitated, and he felt a great terror. And in the morning the king rose from his couch in fear, and he ordered all the wise men and magicians to come before him when the king related his dream to them. And a wise servant of the king, whose name was Anuki, or Anaki, or I would say Anuki here, answered the king, saying, "This is nothing else but the evil of Abram and his seed, which will spring up against my Adonai and king in the latter days. And behold, the day will come when Abram and his seed and the children of his household will war with my king, and they will smite all the king's hosts and his troops. And as to what thou hast said concerning 3 men, which thou didst see like unto thyself, and which did escape, this means that only thou will escape with 3 kings from the kings of the earth, who will be with thee in battle. And that which thou sawest of the river, which turned to an egg, as at first, and the young bird plucking out thine eye, this means nothing else but the seed of Abram, which will slay the king in latter days. Let me go ahead and bring you back in here. Oh, yeah, okay, you're back.
Can I say something, brother, before I forget
up.
what I was gonna say? Brother.
All right. This is my king's dream, and this is its interpretation. And the dream of it is true. And the dream is true. And the interpretation which thy servant has given thee is right. Now, therefore, my king, surely thou knowest that if it is now 52 years since thy sages saw this at the birth of Abram, and if my king will suffer Abram to live in the earth, it will be to the injury of my Adonai king. For all the days that Abram liveth, neither thou nor thy kingdom will be established. For this was known formerly at his birth. And why will not my king slay him, that his evil may be kept from thee in latter days? And Nimrod hearkened to the voices of Anuki, and he said, and he sent him of his servants in secret to go and seize Abram, and bring him before the king to suffer death. And Eleazar, Abram's servant, whom the king had given him, was at that time in the presence of the king, and he heard what Anuki had advised the king, and what the king had said to cause Abram's death. And Eleazar said to Abram, hasten, rise up and save thy soul, that thou mayest not die through the hands of the king. For thus did he see in a dream concerning thee, and thus did Anuki interpret it. And thus also did Anuki advise the king concerning thee. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Eleazar, and Abram hastened and ran for safety to the house of Noah and his son Shem. And he concealed himself there and found a place of safety. And the king's servants came to Abram's house to seek him, but they could not find him. And they searched throughout the country, and he was not to be found. And they went and searched in every direction, and was not to be met with. And when the king's servants could not find Abram, they returned to the king, but the king's anger against Abram was stilled, as they did not find him. And the king drove from his mind this matter concerning Abram. And Abram was concealed in Noah's house for 1 month, until the king had forgotten this matter. But Abram was still afraid of the king. And Terah came to see Abram his son secretly in the house of Noah, and Terah was very great in the eyes of the king. And Abram said to his father, dost thou not know that the king thinketh to slay me, and to annihilate my name from the earth by the advance of his wicked counselors? Now whom hast thou here, and what hast thou in this land? Arise, let us go together to the land of Canaan, that we may be delivered from his hand, lest thou perish also through him in the latter days. Dost thou not know, or hast thou not heard, that it is not through the love that Nimrod giveth thee all this honor, but it is only for his benefit that he bestoweth all his good upon thee? And if he do unto thee greater good than this, surely these are only vanities of the world. For wealth and riches cannot avail in the day of wrath and anger. Now, therefore, hearken to my voice, and let us arise and go to the land of Canaan, out of the reach of injury from Nimrod. and serve thou Yahuwah who created thee in the earth, and it will be well with thee, and cast away all the vain things which thou pursuest. And Abram ceased to speak when Noah and his son Shem answered Terah, saying, True is the word which Abram hath said unto thee. And Terah hearkened to the voice of his son Abram. And Terah did all that Abram said, for this was from Yahuwah, that the king should not cause Abram's death. And Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, the wife of his son Abram, and all the souls of his household, and went with them from Ur Kasdim, to go to the land of Canaan. And when they came as far as the land of Haran, they remained there, for it was exceedingly good land for pasture, and of sufficient extent for those who accompanied them. And the people of the land of Haran saw that Abram was good and upright with Elohim and men, Elohim and men, and Yahuwah his Elohim was with him. And some of the people of the land of Haran came and joined Abram, and he taught them the instruction of Yahuwah in his ways. And these men remained with Abram in his house, and they adhered to him. And Abram remained in the land 3 years. And at the expiration of 3 years, Yahuwah appeared to Abram and said to him, I am Yahuwah, who brought thee forth from Ur Kasdim, and delivered thee from the hands of all thine enemies. And now, therefore, if thou wilt hearken to my voice and keep my commandments, my statutes, and my laws, then will I cause thy enemies to fall before thee, and I will multiply thy seed like the stars of heaven, and I will send my blessing upon all the works of thy hands, and thou shalt lack nothing. Arise now, take thy wife and all belonging to thee, and go to the land of Canaan, and remain there. And I will there be unto thee for Elohim, and I will bless thee. And Abram rose and took his wife and all belonging to him, and he went to the land of Canaan, as Yahuwah had told him. And Abram was 50 years old when he went from Haran. And Abram came to the land of Canaan and dwelt in the midst of the city. And he there pitched his tent amongst the children of Canaan, inhabitants of the land. And Yahuwah appeared unto Abram when he came to the land of Canaan, and said to him, This is the land which I give, or which I gave unto thee and to thy seed after thee forever. And I will make thy seed like the stars of heaven, and I will give unto thy seed for an inheritance all the lands which thou seest. And Abram built an altar in the place where Elohim had spoken to him, and Abram there called upon the name Yahuwah. At that time, at the end of 3 years of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, in that year Noah died, which was the 58th year of the life of Abram. And all the days that Noah lived were 950 years, and he died. And Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan, he, his wife, and all belonging to him, and all those that accompanied him, together with those that joined him from the people of the land. But Nahor, Abram's brother, and Terah his father, and Lot his son, Lot the son of Haran, all belonging to them, dwelt in Haran. In the 5th year of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah and all the cities of the plain revolted from the power of Hador Lamar, king of Elam. For all the kings of the cities of the plain had served Hador Lamar for 12 years and given him a yearly tax. But in those days, in the 13th year, they rebelled against him. And in the 10th year of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, there was war between Nimrod, king of Shinar, and Hadorlamar, king of Elam. And Nimrod came to fight with Hadorlamar and to subdue him. For Hadorlamar was at that time one of the princes of the hosts of Nimrod. And when all the people of the tower were dispersed, and those that remained were scattered upon the face of the earth, Hadolamar went to the land of Elam and reigned over it and rebelled against his Adonai. And in those days, when Nimrod saw that the cities of the plain had rebelled, he came with pride and anger to war with Hadolamar. And Nimrod assembled all his princes and subjects, about 700,000 men, and went against Hadolamar. And Hadolamar went out to meet him with 5,000 men. And they prepared for battle in the valley of Babel, which is between Elam and Shinar. And all those kings fought there, and Nimrod and his people were smitten before the people of Hadolamar. And they fell from Nimrod's men, about 600,000. And Mardon, the king's son, fell amongst them. And Nimrod fled and returned in shame and disgrace to his land. And he was under subjection to Hadolamar for a long time. And Hadolamar returned to his land and sent princes of his hosts to the kings that dwelt around him, to Ariah, king of Elasar, and to Tidal, king of Goyim, and made a covenant with them, and they were all obedient to his commands. And it was in the 15th year of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, which is the 17th year of the life, or the 70th, 70th year of the life of Abram, and Yahuwah appeared unto Abram in that year, and he said to him, I am Yahuwah, who brought thee out of Kasdim, to give thee this land for an inheritance. Now therefore walk before me and be perfect, and keep my commands. For to thee and thy seed I will give this land for an inheritance, from the river Mitzrayim unto the great river Euphrates. And thou shalt come to thy fathers in peace and in a good age. And the fourth generation shall return here in this land and shall inherit it forever. And Abram built an altar, and he called upon the name of Yahuwah, who appeared to him. And he brought up sacrifices upon the altar to Yahuwah. And at that time, Abram returned and went to Haran to see his father and mother and his father's household. And Abram and his wife and all belonging to him returned to Haran, and Abram dwelt in Haran 5 years. And many of the people of Haran, about 72 men, followed Abram, and Abram taught them the instruction of Yahuwah as his ways and his ways. And he taught them to know Yahuwah. And in those days Yahuwah appeared to Abram in Haran, and he said to him, Behold, I spoke unto thee these 20 years back, saying, Go forth from the land, from thy birthplace, and from thy father's house, in the land which I have shown thee, to give it to thee and thy children. For there in that land will I bless thee, and make thee a great nation, and make thy name great. And in thee shall the families of the earth be blessed. Now therefore arise and go forth from this place, thou, thy wife, and all belonging to thee, also everyone born in thy house, and all the souls that hast made in Haran, and bring them out with thee from here, and rise, and to return to the land of Canaan. And Abram arose and took his wife Sarai, and all belonging to him, and all that were born to him in his house, and the souls which they had made in Haran. And they came out to go to the land of Canaan. And Abram went and returned to the land of Canaan, according to the word of Yahuwah. And Lot, the son of his brother Haran, went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he went forth from Haran to return to the land of Canaan. And he came to the land of Canaan, according to the word of Yahuwah, to Abram. And he pitched his tent, and he dwelt in the plain of Mamre. And with him was Lot, his brother's son, and all belonging to him. And Yahuwah again appeared to Abram and said, To thy seed will I give this land. And he built there an altar to Yahuwah, who appeared to him, which is still to this day in the plains of Mamre. In those days there was in the land of Shinar a wise man who had understanding and all wisdom, of a beautiful appearance, but he was poor and indigent. His name was Rikion, and he was hard set to support himself. And he resolved to go to Egypt, Mitzrayim, to Assuerus, the son of Anam, king of Egypt, to show the king his wisdom, for perhaps he might find grace in his sight to raise him up and give him maintenance. And Rikion did so. And when Rikion came to Egypt, he asked the inhabitants of Egypt concerning the king. And the inhabitants of Egypt told him the custom of the king of Egypt. For it was then the custom of the king of Egypt that he went from his royal palace and was seen abroad only one day in the year. And after that, the king would return to his place to remain there. And on the day when the king went forth, he passed judgment in the land. And everyone having a suit came before the king that day to obtain his request. And when Rikion heard the custom of Egypt, and that he could not come into the presence of the king, he grieved greatly and was very sorrowful. And in the evening, Rikion went out and found a house in ruins, formerly a bakehouse in Egypt. And he abode there all night in bitterness of soul and pitched with hunger. And sleep was removed from his eyes. And Rikion considered within himself what he should do in the town until the king made his appearance, and how he might maintain himself there. And he rose in the morning and walked about and met in his way those who sold vegetables and various sorts of seed with which they supplied the inhabitants. And Rikion wished to do the same in order to get a maintenance in the city. But he was unacquainted with the customs of the people, and he was like a blind man among them. And he went and obtained vegetables to sell them for his support, and the rabble assembled about and around him and ridiculed him and took his vegetables from him and left him nothing. And he rose up from there in bitterness of soul, and he went sighing to the bakehouse in which he had remained all the night before, and he slept there the second night. And on that night, again, he reasoned within himself, how could he save himself from starvation? And he devised a scheme how to act. And he rose up in the morning, and he acted ingeniously, and went and hired 30 strong men of the rabble, carrying their war instruments in their hands. And he led them to the top of the Egyptian sepulchre, and he placed them there. And he commanded them, saying, thus saith the king, strengthen yourselves and be valiant men, and let no man be buried here until 200 pieces of silver be given, and then he may be buried. And those men did according to the order of Rikion, to the people of Egypt, the whole of that year. And in 8 months' time, Rikion and his men gathered great riches of silver and gold. And Rikion took a great quantity of horses and other animals, and he hired more men, and he gave them horses, and they remained with him. And when the year came round, at the time the king went forth into the town, all the inhabitants of Egypt assembled together to speak to him concerning the work of Rikion and his men. And the king went forth on the appointed day, and all the Egyptians came before him and cried unto him, saying, may the king live forever. What is this thing thou doest in the town to thy servants, not to suffer a dead body to be buried until so much silver and gold be given? Was there ever the like unto this done in the whole earth, from the days of former kings, yea, even from the days of Adam, unto this day, that the dead should not be buried only for a set price? We know it to be the custom of kings to take a yearly tax from the living, but thou dost not only do this, but from the dead also thou exactest a tax by day by day. Now, O king, we can no more bear this, for the whole city is ruined on this account. And dost thou not know it? Excuse me. And when the king heard of all that they had spoken, he was very wroth, and his anger burned within him at this affair, for he had known nothing of it. And the king said, who And where is he that dares to do this wicked thing in my land without my command? Surely you will tell me. And they told him all the works of Rikion and his men, and the king's anger was aroused, and he ordered Rikion and his men to be brought before him. And Rikion took about 1,000 children, sons and daughters, and clothed them in silk and embroidery, and he set them upon horses and sent them to the king by means of his men. And he also took a great quantity of silver and gold and precious stones, and a strong and beautiful horse as a present for the king, with which he came before the king and bowed down to the earth before him. And the king and his servants and all the inhabitants of Egypt wondered at the work of Rikion, and they saw his riches and the present that he had brought to the king, and he greatly pleased the king, and he wondered at it. And when Rikion sat before him, the king asked him concerning all his works, and Rikion spoke all his words wisely before the king and his servants and all the inhabitants of Egypt. And when the king heard the words of Rikion and his wisdom, Rikion found grace in his sight, and he met with grace and kindness from all the servants of the king and from all the inhabitants of Egypt, on account of his wisdom and excellent speeches. And from that time they loved him exceedingly. And the king answered and said to Rikion, Thy name shall no more be called Rikion, but Pharaoh shall be thy name, since thou did exact tax from the dead. And he called his name Pharaoh. So right there, I want to take a quick second to, this is something that I had shown somebody over on Coon Book, because they were trying to tell me, that some timelines was off, because I posted the scripture from Joseph being raised up, and it said the name Pharaoh and all Pharaoh's riches and all that, and they got to asking me when was the first Pharaoh named, the first king being called Pharaoh. So I had to go all the way back to here and show that from here on, this is where we get the name Pharaoh, from Rikion.
Right. And brother, why you pulling that up, brother? I just want to put I just wanted to way at the beginning, I didn't got my notebook out. Like I said, y'all, I'm learning too. I didn't got my notebook out. But way back at the top, that was a double prophecy when it was giving Abraham they was giving him silver, gold, and basically great substances. You know what I mean? And after he left, you know what I mean? After the fire and stuff like that, they gave him gold and great substance, and that ain't that kind of the prophecy right there. Ain't that kind of the prophecy right there? They gave Abraham gold after he was inflicted in the fire and everything, and they gave him silver and gold and great substance. That's a part of the promise right there. Like that's why these books are so important.
Oh yeah, that's a reoccurring thing from for our people, is to be given great substance before we leave.
Right.
Any and all great tribulations that we go through, that's a reoccurring thing.
Right, that part right there. Yeah, that's you said it. Y'all couldn't have said it better. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Sometimes I be stumbling on my words trying to get what I'm trying to get out. But yeah, he left and then they gave him stuff, and it's like, wow, that's the same prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
Sis, you still there? What you got?
You got anything, sis? She might not be near. We'll go ahead and move along for a little bit, and if she's got something, we'll let her go ahead and talk about it for a hot moment too. Let's see here.
And it's crazy you bring up It's crazy you bring up this Joseph thing, and I've seen a lot.
That's
of
later in the line,
right? But I'm saying I see a lot of Joseph prophecies going on with these dreams being reinterpreted and stuff like that, and then you come with the Pharaoh thing that you about to bring out, and it's like this is what I mean, like this is a reoccurring thing, kind of in the sense of it, the conversation you had with the guy was about Joseph and the pharaohs, but farther up, if you read farther up, some they got this dream thing going on with the king. I mean, I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
if that's like a little corner block, a cornerstone, like sis would say.
Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, she said she's backstage. Oh, okay. Let me see here. Oh yeah, you muted your mic, sis, so I can't unmute it. Let me see here. Trying to make sure everything's still in view. All right. But yeah, this Pharaoh thing, exacting tax from the dead. That's something. Just y'all seek the Most High on that right there. I don't want to go too far on that, but this is something right here. You know, that seek the Most High on some of His understanding on that, because I don't want to go too far and hold everybody up. We got 5 more chapters to go, and hopefully we'll get it all knocked out, so that way we don't have such a long broadcast like we did the other night, because I didn't think we were going to go 10 chapters deep, but hey, all praise to the Most High.
Hey, all praise to the Most High. And I said I was gonna try to help you, but I remember when we did the little joke we made backstage when I was telling you, my
You heard me?
Louisiana accent. My Louisiana accent might not be nobody gonna understand nothing, especially with these big words.
I feel you, family. It's all to the good, man. It's all good. And the king and his subjects loved Rikayon for his wisdom, and they consulted with all the inhabitants of Egypt to make him perfect under the king. And all the inhabitants of Egypt and its wise men did so. And it was made a law in Egypt. And they made Rikayon, Pharaoh, perfect under Oswaris, king of Egypt. And Rikayon, Pharaoh, governed over Egypt, daily administering justice to the whole city. But Oswaris, the king, would judge the people of the land one day in the year, and when he went out to make his appearance. And Rikayon Pharaoh cunningly usurped the government of Egypt, and he exacted a tax from all the inhabitants of Egypt. And all the inhabitants of Egypt greatly loved Rikayon Pharaoh, and they made a decree to call every king that should reign over them and their seed of Egypt Pharaoh. Therefore, all the kings that reigned in Egypt from that time forward were called Pharaoh unto this day. And in that year there was a heavy famine throughout the land of Canaan, and the inhabitants of the land could not remain on account of the famine, for it was very grievous. And Abram and all belonging to him rose and went down to Egypt on account of the famine. And when they were there, when they were at the brook of Mitzrayim, they remained there some time to rest from the fatigue of the road. Oh, I didn't know that it knocked you all the way out, sis. Trying to add you back on in. It's being a little slow. Apologize, y'all. My PC's being on the slow side at the moment.
Yes, it did. It knocked me right out.
I see you backstage.
There we go, sis. She
Oh, there you go. All right. Did you have something about from earlier on about Pharaoh? Hey, sis, we can hear you now. I think.
said try again.
Oh
She in the
no.
chat.
See, there she is. There she is. Got you. Now all you gotta do is just unmute your mic. Hey, sis, you should be right there now. All you gotta do is unmute your mic.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
There we go. There we go.
Do you guys get an echo?
Nope, not right now.
Okay,
No
that's
echo.
awesome. Sorry about that. It just kicked me out. So there we go.
Mm. Yeah, but did you have anything from earlier on when we paused talking about Pharaoh and the beginning? You know,
I was surprised. I didn't, the name Pharaoh popping out of that and his name being changed was a shock to me. And I was like, oh my. So a cornerstone where this man was vicious. He wouldn't let people be buried until he got 20 pieces of silver. And we see
200.
Pharaoh. You can still hear me?
Yep, but it was 200.
We 200 what? 200 pieces of silver. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So we can see where, these pharaohs, they have a certain MO about them. They are vicious and kind of very hard people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
also, when Abraham built that altar, I don't know about anybody else, but I just felt a real sense of awe. Like, again, my grandmother, told us we were living in the last days, and I never really understood that and until 2020. And you know, I'm I'm shocked. I'm happy, and like I'm going to be able to see him like soon, and I feel that, and I also feel that call that Abraham had to leave his city and take his family. I don't know about anybody else, but I there's a movement in me. Like I know I'm going somewhere. I don't know where yet, but I'm
Right.
going.
Right.
That's what's up. All right. So now we're gonna get to some more good parts. There's so many good parts, but ah, so in Abram and Sarai were walking at the border of the brook of Mizraim, and Abram beheld his wife Sarai, that she was very beautiful. And Abram said to his wife Sarai, since Elohim has created thee with such a beautiful countenance, I'm afraid of the Egyptians, lest they should slay me and take thee away. For fear of Elohim is not in this place or in these places. Surely then thou should do this, say that thou art my sister, to all that may ask thee, in order that it may be well with me, and that we may live and not be put to death. And Abram commanded the same to all those that came with him to Egypt on account of the famine. Also his nephew Lot he commanded, saying, if the Egyptians ask thee concerning Sarai, say she is the sister of Abram. And yet, with all these orders, Abram did not put confidence in them. But he took Sarai and placed her in a chest and concealed it amongst their vessels. For Abram was greatly concerned about Sarai on account of the wickedness of the Egyptians. And Abram and all belonging to him rose up from the brook of Mizraim and came to Egypt, and they had scarcely entered the gates of the city when the guards stood up to them, saying, give tithe to the king from what you have, and then you may come into the town. And Abram and those that were with him did so. And Abram with the people that were with him came to Egypt. And they came, and when they came, they brought the chest in which Sarai was concealed, and the Egyptians saw the chest. And the king's servants approached Abram, saying, what hast thou in this chest, which we have not seen? Now open thou the chest and give tithe to the king of all that it contains. And Abram said, this chest I will not open, but all you demand upon it I will give. And Pharaoh's officers answered Abram, saying, It is a chest of precious stones. Give us the tenth thereof. And Abram said, all that you desire I will give, but you must not open the chest. And the king's officers pressed Abram, and they reached the chest and opened it with force. And they saw, and behold, a beautiful woman was in the chest. And when the officers of the king beheld Sarai, they were struck with admiration at her beauty. And all the princes and servants of Pharaoh assembled to see Sarai, for she was very beautiful. And the king's officers ran and told Pharaoh all that they had seen. And they praised Sarai to the king. And Pharaoh ordered her to be brought, and the woman came before the king. And Pharaoh beheld Sarai, and she pleased him exceedingly, and he was struck with her beauty. And the king rejoiced greatly on her account, and made presents to those who brought him the tidings concerning her. And the woman was then brought to Pharaoh's house. And Abram grieved on account of his wife, and he prayed to Yahuwah to deliver her from the hands of Pharaoh. And Sarai also prayed at that time and said, O Yahuwah Elohim, thou didst tell my Lord, my Adonai Abram, to go from his land and from his father's house to the land of Canaan. And thou didst promise to do well with him, for he would perform thy commands. Now behold, we have done that which thou didst command us, and we left our land and our families, and we went to a strange land and to a people whom we have not known before. And we came to this land to avoid the famine, and this evil accident has befallen me. Now therefore, O Yahuwah Elohim, deliver us and save us from the hand of this oppressor, and do well with me for the sake of thy mercy. And Yahuwah hearkened to the voice of Sarai, and Yahuwah sent an angel to deliver Sarai from the power of Pharaoh. And the king came and sat before Sarai, and behold, an angel of Yahuwah was standing over them. And he appeared to Sarai and said to her, do not fear, for Yahuwah has heard thy prayer. And the king approached Sarai and said to her, what is that man to thee who brought thee hither? And she said, he is my brother. And the king said, it is incumbent upon us to make him great, to elevate him, and to do unto him all the good which thou shalt command us. And at that time the king sent Abram silver and gold and precious stones in abundance, together with cattle, men servants, and maid servants. And the king ordered Abram to be brought. And he sat in the court of the king's house. And the king greatly exalted Abram on that night. And the king approached to speak to Sarai, and he reached out his hand to touch her, when the angel smote him heavily, and he was terrified, and he refrained from reaching to her. And when the king came near to Sarai, the angel smote him to the ground, and acted thus to him the whole night. And the king was terrified. And the angel on that night smote heavily all the servants of the king, and his whole household on account of Sarai. And there was a great lamentation that night amongst the people of Pharaoh's house. And Pharaoh, seeing the evil that befell him, said, surely on account of this woman has this thing happened to me. And he removed himself at some distance from her and spoke pleasing words to her. And the king said to Sarai, tell me, I pray thee, concerning the man with whom thou camest here. And Sarai said, this man is my husband. And I said to thee that he is my brother, for I was afraid that thou shouldest put him to death through wickedness. And the king kept away from Sarai, and the plagues of the angel of Yahuwah ceased from him and his household. And Pharaoh knew that he was smitten on account of Sarai. And the king was greatly astonished at this. And in the morning the king called for Abram and said to him, what is this that thou hast done to me? Why didst thou say, she is my sister, owing to which I took her unto me for a wife? And this heavy plague has therefore come upon me and my household. Now therefore, here is thy wife, take her and go from our land, lest we all die on her account. And Pharaoh took more cattle, men servants and maid servants, and silver and gold to give to Abram, and he returned unto him Sarai his wife. And the king took a maiden whom he begat by his concubines, and he gave her to Sarai for a handmaid. And the king said to his daughter, It is better for thee, my daughter, to be a handmaid in this man's house than to be mistress in my house, after we have beheld the evil that befell us on account of this woman. And Abram rose, and he and all belonging to him went away from Egypt. And Pharaoh ordered some of his men to accompany him, and all that went with him. And Abram returned to the land of Canaan, to the place where he made the altar, where he at first pitched his tent. And Lot, his son Haran, the son of Haran, Abram's brother, had a heavy stock of cattle, flocks, and herds, and tents, for Yahuwah was bountiful to them on account of Abram. And when Abram was dwelling in the land, the herdsmen of Lot quarreled with the herdsmen of Abram, for their property was too great for them to remain together in the land, and the land could not bear them on account of their cattle. And Abram's herdsmen went to feed their flock. They would not go into the fields of the people of the land, but the cattle of Lot's herdsmen did otherwise, for they were suffered to feed in the fields of the people of the land. And the people of the land saw this occurrence daily, and they came to Abram and quarreled with him on account of Lot's herdsmen. And Abram said to Lot, What is this thou art doing to me, to make me despicable to the inhabitants of the land? That thou ordered thy herdsmen to feed thy cattle in the fields of other people. Dost thou not know I'm a stranger in this land amongst the children of Canaan? And why wilt thou do this unto me? And Abram quarreled daily with Lot on account of this. But Lot would not listen to Abram, and he continued to do the same. And the inhabitants of the land came and told Abram. And Abram said unto Lot, How long wilt thou be to me for a stumbling block with the inhabitants of the land? Now I beseech thee, let there be no more quarreling between us, for we are kinsmen. But I pray thee, separate from me. Go and choose a place where thou mayest dwell with thy cattle and all belonging to thee. But keep thyself at a distance from me, thou and thy household. And be not afraid in going from me. For if anyone do any injury to thee, let me know, and I will avenge thy cause from him. Only remove from me. And when Abram had spoken all these words to Lot, then Lot arose, lifted up his eyes towards the plain of Jordan. And he saw that the whole of this place was well watered, and good for man, as well as offering pasture for the cattle. And Lot went from Abram to that place, and he there pitched his tent, and he dwelt in Sodom. And they were separated from each other. And Abram dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, or Hebron. And he pitched his tent there, and Abram remained in that place many years. At that time, Hadarlamar, king of Elam, sent to all the neighboring kings, to Nimrod, king of Shinar, who was then under his power, and to Tidal, king of Goyim, and to Ariah, king of Elasar, with whom he made covenant, saying, Come up to me and assist me, that we may smite all the towns of Sodom and its inhabitants, for they have rebelled against me these 13 years. And these 4 kings went up with all their camps, about 800,000 men, and they went as they were, and smote every man they found in their road. And the 5 kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shimber, king of Zeboim, Berah, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, and Bela, king of Zoar, went out to meet them, and they all joined together in the valley of Siddim. And these 9 kings made war in the valley of Siddim. And the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah were smitten before the kings of Elam. And the valley of Siddim was full of lime pits. And the kings of Elam pursued the kings of Sodom. And the kings of Sodom were with their camps fled and fell into the lime pits. And all that remained went to the mountain for safety. And the 5 kings of Elam came after them and pursued them to the gates of Sodom. And they took all that there was in Sodom, and they plundered all the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And they also took Lot, Abraham's brother's son, and his property, and they seized all the goods of the cities of Sodom. And they went away, and Eunuch, Abram's servant, who was in the battle, saw this and told Abram all that the kings had done to the cities of Sodom, and that Lot was taken captive by them. And Abram heard this, and he rose up with about 318 men that were with him, and he that night pursued these kings and smote them, and they all fell before Abram and his men, and there was none remaining but the 4 kings who fled, and they went each his own road. And Abram recovered all the property of Sodom, and he also recovered Lot and his property, his wives and little ones, and all belonging to him, so that Lot lacked nothing. And when he returned from smiting these kings, he and his men passed the valley of Siddim, where the kings had made war together. And Berah, king of Sodom, and the rest of his men that were with him went out from the lime pits into which they had fallen to meet Abram and his men. And Adonai's, oh, okay, give me a second. I will try. Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, the same was Shem, went out with his men to meet Abram and his people with bread and wine, and they remained together in the valley of Melech. And Adonizedek blessed Abram, and Abram gave him a tenth from all that he had brought from the spoil of his enemies. For Adonizedek was a priest before Elohim. And all the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah who were there with their servants approached Abram and begged of him to return them their servants whom he had made captive, and to take unto himself all the property. And Abram answered the kings of Sodom, saying, As Yahuwah liveth, who created heaven and earth, and who redeemed my soul from all affliction, and who delivered me this day from my enemies, and gave them into my hand, I will not take anything belonging to you, that you may not boast tomorrow, saying, Abram became rich from our poverty that he saved. For Yahuwah my Elohim, in whom I trust, said unto me, Thou shalt lack nothing, for I will bless thee in all the works of thy hands. And now therefore, behold, here is all belonging to you. Take it and go. As Yahuwah liveth, I will not take from you, from a living soul down to a shoe tie or thread, excepting the expense of the food of those who went out with me to battle, as also the portions of the men who went with me, Anar, Ashhol, and Mamre, and they and their men, as well as those who remained to watch the baggage. They shall take their portion of the spoil. And the king of Sodom gave Abram according to all that he had said, and they pressed him to take of whatever he chose, but he would not. And he sent away the kings of Sodom and the remainder of their men, and he gave them orders about Lot, and they went to their respective places. And Lot, his brother's son, he also sent away with his property, and he went with them, and Lot returned to his home to Sodom. And Abram and his people returned to their home to the plains of Mamre, which is in Hebron. At that time, Yahuwah again appeared to Abram in Hebron, and he said to him, Do not fear, Thy reward is very great before me, for I will not leave thee until I shall have multiplied thee and blessed thee and made thy seed like the stars in heaven, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And I will give unto thee and unto thy seed all these lands that thou seest with thine eyes. To them will I give them for an inheritance forever. Only be strong and do not fear. Walk before me and be perfect. And in the 78th year of the life of Abram, in that year died Reu, the son of Peleg. And all the days of Reu were 239 years, and he died. And Sarai, the daughter of Haran, Abram's wife, was still barren in those days. She did not bear to Abram either son or daughter. And when she saw that she bare no children, she took her handmaid Hagar, whom Pharaoh had given her, and she gave her to Abram, her husband, for a wife. For Hagar learned all the ways of Sarai, as Sarai taught her. She was not in any way deficient in following her good ways. And Sarai said to Abram, Behold, here is my handmaid Hagar. Go to her, that she may bring forth upon my knees, that I may also obtain children through her. And at the end of 10 years of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, which is the 85th year of Abram's life, Sarai gave Hagar unto him. And Abram hearkened to the voice of his wife Sarai. And he took his handmaid Hagar, and Abram came to her, and she conceived. And when Hagar saw that she had conceived, she rejoiced greatly, and her mistress was despised in her eyes. And she said within herself, This can only be that I am better before Elohim than Sarai, my mistress. For all the days that my mistress has been with my Adonai, she did not conceive, but me, Yahuwah has caused in so short a time to conceive by him. And when Sarai saw that Hagar had conceived by Abram, Sarai was jealous of her handmaid. And Sarai said within herself, This is surely nothing else but that she must be better than I am. And Sarai said unto Abram, My wrong be upon thee. For the time when thou didst pray before Yahuwah for children, why didst thou not pray on my account, that Yahuwah should give me seed from thee? And when I speak to Hagar in thy presence, she despiseth my words, because she has conceived. And thou will say nothing to her. May Yahuwah judge between me and thee for what thou hast done to me. And Abram said to Sarai, Behold, thy handmaid is in thy hand. Do unto her as it may seem good in thy eyes. And Sarai afflicted her, and Hagar fled from her to the wilderness. And an angel of Yahuwah found her in the place where she had fled by a well. And he said to her, Do not fear, for I will multiply thy seed. For thou shalt bear a son, and thou shalt call his name Yishmael. Now then, return to Sarai thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And Hagar called the place of that well Beer Lahairoi. Bear Lahairoi. I'm not for certain about that one. I'm hoping for correction, definitely on that one. It is between Kadesh and the wilderness of Bered. And Hagar at the time returned to her master's house. And at the end of days, Hagar bare a son to Abram, and Abram called his name Yishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when he begat him. And in those days, in the 91st year of the life of Abram, the children of Hittim made war with the children of Tubal. And when Yahuwah had scattered the sons of men upon the face of the earth, the children of Hittim went and embodied themselves in the plain of Canopia. And they built themselves cities there and dwelt by the river Tibru. And the children of Tubal dwelt in Tuscanah, and their boundaries reached the river Tibru. And the children of Tubal built a city in Tuscanah, and they called the name Sabina, after the name of Sabina, son of Tubal, their father, and they dwelt there and they unto this day. And it was that time, at that time, the children of Hittim made war with the children of Tubal, and the children of Tubal were smitten before the children of Hittim. And the children of Hittim caused 370 men to fall from the children of Tubal. And at that time, the children of Tubal swore to the children of Hittim, saying, You shall not intermarry amongst us, and no man shall give his daughter unto any of the sons of Hittim. For all the daughters of Tubal in those days fair, for no woman were then found in the whole earth so fair as the daughters of Tubal. I doubt that. And all who went to the daughters of Tubal and took wives from them. And the sons of men, kings and princes, who greatly delighted in the beauty of women, took wives in those days from the daughters of Tubal. At the end of 3 years, after the children of Tubal had sworn to the children of Hittim not to give them their daughters for wives, about 20 men of the children of Hittim went to take some of the daughters of Tubal, but they found none. For the children of Tubal kept their oaths not to intermarry with them, and they would not break their oaths. And in the days of harvest, the children of Tubal went into their fields to get in their harvest, when the young men of Hittim assembled and went to the city of Sabina, and each man took a young woman from the daughters of Tubal, and they came to their cities. And the children of Tubal heard of it. They went to make war with them, and they could not prevail over them, for the mountain was exceedingly high from them. And when they saw they could not prevail over them, they returned to their land. And at the revolution of the year, the children of Tubal went and hired about 10,000 men from those cities that were near them, and they went to war with the children of Hittim. And the children of Tubal went to war with the children of Hittim to destroy their land and to distress them. In this engagement, the children of Tubal prevailed over the children of Hittim. And the children of Hittim, seeing that they were greatly distressed, lifted up the children which they had by the daughters of Tubal upon the wall which had been built to be before the eyes of the children of Tubal. And the children of Hittim said to them, Have you come to make war with your own sons and daughters? Have we not been considered your flesh and bones from that time till now? And when the children of Tubal heard this, they ceased to make war with the children of Hittim, and they went away. And they returned to their cities, and the children of Hittim at that time assembled and built 2 cities by the sea, and they called one Pertu, and the other Ariza. And Abram, the son of Terah, was then 99 years old. At that time, Yahuwah appeared to him, and he said to him, I will make my covenant between me and thee, and I will greatly multiply thy seed. And this is the covenant which I make between me and thee, that every male child be circumcised, thou and thy seed after thee. At 8 days old shall it be circumcised, and this covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And now, therefore, thy name shall no more be called Abram, but Abraham, and thy wife shall be more called Sarai, but no more called Sarai, but Sarah. For I will bless you both, and I will multiply your seed after you, that you shall become a great nation, and kings shall come forth from you. So, real quick, family, I know that was a whole lot of, just
Man,
history.
it was a whole lot.
Just a whole lot.
I got my notebook out, brother.
Yes, the notebook.
What you got, sis?
But see,
I got a notebook out.
The one thing I want to say before y'all get started and what y'all got is this circumcision through the children of Abraham. So anybody that claims that they're of Abraham and they say that circumcision is not something that the Most High, you know, um, harps on, or it's not important to him, I you know, I doubt that. I doubt that, and I doubt it because of this. Because he said, "It will be, it shall be a covenant. This covenant shall be in your flesh as an everlasting covenant to be circumcised."
Right. And most of the slaves, they said most, if not all of the slaves that came over here during this transatlantic slave trade was circumcised. And the most circumcised people in the whole planet is on the west coast of Africa, where we came, where they got us from. And but I got a lot to go, man. What else you got, sis? I got a lot though. I got the notebook here. What you got, sis?
Yeah, I got a few things myself. You go right ahead.
But all the way back at the top where you started, when Abraham went into Egypt. Um, I just wanted to say I wanted to narrate a little bit, but I was trying to let the word come out off the page. But when you was
Oh
going through
yeah.
when Abraham went in, I was like, yo, Hebrew sisters all over the world, like, look at what you come from. Look at what you come from. Sarah had to be I mean, quote unquote, she had to be a bad, 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 bad sister. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, like, she was that beautiful. You know what I mean? Like, she was that beautiful. She didn't have none of these. You know what I'm saying? Not to put that out there, like eyelashes and stuff like that. That these, but she was from pure, you know what I'm saying, from a pure Hebrew woman. Like, she was that beautiful that, the king just had to go ahead and bless Abram on the way out. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I'm just saying, like this, I'm trying to come from this society right now. You know what I mean? Like, and that's probably why they are just so bigot of trying to degrade our women. Even some of our rappers, you know what I mean? Like, it's just trying to degrade our women to the point, you know what I mean? But in the sense of it, when you look at this story here about Sarah, Sarah was the reason that Abraham got all those maids, all that gold, all that stuff, everything that he had out there. You know what I mean? Like, the king blessed him, and it's just so much that was dropped. You know what I mean? And it was so much that was dropped. I mean, that part that blessed me. You know what I mean? Like, I have a Hebrew wife, and I look at her through them wise. You know what I'm saying? When you just read that about Sarah, I look at her like wow. Like it ought to make us have a more higher standard about our women. You know what I mean? Like, not even just that, not even just her beauty. What did she do immediately after the king sees her? She went right into operation. She went right into prayer, calling on Yahuwah. She went right into it. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, that blessed me. That did something for me, man. That did something for me. I don't know what you guys says. I know you could go on. I know you could go in on that right there.
Well, I saw that part too, and what struck me is the correlation or the similarity to Eve in the Garden of Eden when she took of the apple and she offered it to Adam. Here we have a very similar situation where um, this Pharaoh has decided to um, take this woman, and then when he was punished by God, he goes back and he blames the woman for what happened. But the real, although in this particular situation, she really didn't do anything wrong. But the man decides, well, I'm not going to take ownership for what I did. I'm just going to blame her for it. It's all her fault. It's everybody's fault but mine. So taking
Right.
ownership is what I got out of this about the lesson to be learned, and how when we do stuff, we have choices that we have to make, and we have to receive the consequences whether they're good or bad.
I see sister Miss B out there. She said Pharaoh was like, "Woo wee."
Right. Yeah, like for real.
That
And
part.
the
That
crazy
part.
part about it, Abraham already knew it, you know? He already knew it. He already knew it, you know, like
Yeah.
That's why he put her in
But
a
see,
box. I
but
mean,
see,
he put her in a box.
and then here's the other part. Like it foreshadowed when Abram told Sarai that, you know, we got to say that you're my sister because these people don't know Elohim. They don't know the Most
right,
High. They don't fear Him.
right,
So they have a wickedness upon them that they don't fear Him. So they would kill me just to take you from me. They don't. They don't.
right.
They don't understand that that's still wrong. Just
They were
kill a man to
perverted.
take his wife. You know what I'm saying? So
And
say that you're my
and
sister, so that way they won't kill us. But the wickedness of how they operate still came right back around to hit them in with
Right,
that
mhm.
plague.
And she
right,
had to, like you said, she had to have a wonderful figure because he had to hide her in a box. He couldn't just put robes over her.
right,
You know what
right.
I'm saying? Look, you're gonna have to get in this box because everybody gonna see.
Man,
But I also wanted to like identify where, we can still see our people. Lot and Abraham. I've heard
Right,
this story several times. This is our people, if you didn't know. Abraham and Lot were mad at each other. He said, "Brother, I love you to death, but you need to get on away from me because this just ain't working out. But if somebody mess with you, you come tell me and I'm gonna handle this.
that
right,
part,
And if that ain't
right,
us, I don't know what is."
that part, you know, that part,
right. And
they had
another
they
thing,
they
go ahead,
had
there,
that
brother.
moment of agreeing to disagree, and he was like, "Look, don't be afraid. Just because you leave from me, just depart from me. You still my nephew. I love you,
Right,
and if anybody mess with you, like sis said, let me know."
right, right. And another thing I took from the last story too is that I'm glad we into the book, and we, like I said, I can't stress this more, that the page, that the words are jumping off the page, because we understand now that relationship. We have a better clarification of that relationship between Lot and Abraham. You know, because when you sit there and when you read Genesis about when they just say like, "Hey, Lot went on the other way," they had a
Yeah,
disagreement
it
some
just
type of way.
departed.
Right. But when you sit there and understand why Abraham sit there and he still sat there and wrote for like that, because that was the brother that was that, like
That's his
that was the
nephew.
son. That's exactly, that was the nephew, that was the son of the brother that was thrown in the fire with him. So in the sense of that, that was like the last piece of his brother. So when we get
Yep.
down to when we get down to when he actually starts pleading with God for Sodom, because Lot was there, we kind of get a clear understanding of that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Even though they had their disagreement, Abraham was like, "Man, that's my brother's son." You know what I mean? And we kind of get a better clarification of what their relationship was, you know what I mean? And what was the
Hmm.
fallout, you know what I mean? Like it all comes together, and I think, I think the Most High that we are getting to, reveal this through these books and through these words, because in the sense of that we don't really get that, we don't get the full story in Genesis.
Right.
We definitely don't. Like Hagar. I didn't know that Hagar was a gift to Abraham and Sarah
Yeah,
from the
from
Lord.
Pharaoh.
Right, right, exactly. That part.
That she was Pharaoh's daughter. Yeah. Yeah, that did that got me too when I first read it. Like, wow, that's refreshing to know.
And I
It's the
also
whole
wanted to
thing.
like point out the whale thing because I think we will get to. I'm learning that whales are significant in um, in the Bible.
A lot of stuff goes on around those wells. Yeah, the
Yeah,
woman at the
that's
well,
Yeah, like
the
the woman
watering.
at the
They're
well.
watering holes. That's where
Yeah,
everybody comes to
yeah.
get their water, to draw water. So you meet a lot of people at the well. You
Right.
know,
Good point, sis. Good point. Yeah.
that's a good thing to pull out. Unfortunately, these days they call them bars, taverns, and saloons, the local watering
or
hole.
The
You know what
or
I'm
if
water
saying?
you're in the
But
office, what do they call it? The water cooler?
that too. I
Hey,
mean,
hey, that's a good point too. Yeah, you're right. You're right. There's a lot of things going on with these whales when you sit there and think about these whales. They keep
yeah.
popping up. They keep popping up in scripture. They keep popping up in scripture constantly.
Mm-mm-mm.
And to piggyback on that, that's a well that they took out because that's a well that we only know about in Jasher. You know, so if these wells keep popping up, and we got a well moment right here in Jasher that if you don't read Jasher, you won't know this well existed or that point existed. Then you know, I don't know what y'all think about that, family.
Oh yeah. Cam 2 player said leading to the living water. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
Right, right. Shout out Camp Two player, man. Shalom, brother. Shalom, brother. We getting into this Genesis, man. I mean this Jasher, and we like like I said, I got my notebook out and I'm learning right now. You know what I'm saying? And I told you, you know what I'm saying, I read Jasher before, but it's something about the word being read. You're gonna hear something different, you're gonna hear something that you miss. You know what I'm saying? You can't really suck it all in and say, hey, I read it already and just slap the book there. You know what I mean? But it's not that, you know something always pops up, something always, and that's why, in a sense of it is, people, what I'm saying, need to understand that we are from three different walks of life. You know what I'm saying? You're getting three really different points of, you know what I'm saying, and that's why, what I'm saying, I'm really blessed, you know what I'm saying, and it really blessed me, that we could be on this thing with Sister Sharita. She's giving a different point. She's not bringing out the same thing that I'm bringing out, and Rouse is not bringing out the same thing I'm bringing out. But with three different eyes on it, we can all sit there and look at it and pull a point that everybody, somebody might have focused on something on your point, somebody might have focused on my point, but when we all come together in His name with His word, it all brings it back together, and
Yeah.
you get a full dialogue.
And see, that's why, unfortunately, I haven't been able to keep up with the chat. But as I'm scrolling through my phone, there's some really good points. Like I'd like to go back through. And unfortunately, the PC's been low on the slow side. But trying to see, I just saw it just a second ago.
Right, and
Miss
everybody from the
B, yeah,
chat, they
Miss
can
B
bring in their
said you
part.
should have waited and trusted in Yah. You know what I'm saying? So
Right,
since Sarai didn't wait and trust in Yah, she gave over her handmaid as a wife to Abram, and then once she conceived, she got jealous, all because she didn't have the patience to wait on the Most High.
right, right, right.
Right. So definitely a good call out on that, Miss B. Showing up. There's a lot of stuff in here, that the family's been calling out here and there, as we've been reading and going through,
Okay,
but
well,
unfortunately haven't been able to pull it back up.
could you bring out some of those things that they're pulling up? You could pull them up on the screen, and we can kind of go through them.
Well, um, well, Brother Larry Carnell Bryce was saying very good parallels, sis. And I don't know if he was talking to Pharaoh or talking to you, Sister Sharita, but yeah, regardless, I mean, there are good parallels all through here. I think when he might have been talking about some of the different associations of reoccurring themes, that could possibly be something
I
he was
also
talking
wanted,
about.
I
Like,
also wanted to
go ahead.
how Abraham, the name that you couldn't pronounce start with an E or something like that.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
How Abraham made sure that he showed good hospitality. Like even though he was given all these things, he didn't take advantage. He made sure that his troops, his men, and his family were fed, and he also
Right.
made sure that he gave them a fair wage for going out there and warring against the people that took his nephew.
Yep.
Right. Right.
I like the part where he said, you know, you ain't gonna say tomorrow that you made Abraham rich off your poverty. That you went broke and you made me rich just because of something, you know, or of anything. You ain't gonna be saying that about me. Because the Most High
Right.
And a
said
lot of
that I'm gonna be well off. I'm not gonna lack nothing. So I'm good.
Yeah, and a lot of us could, learn that lesson when we go to other people's homes and visit. It's polite to come with something in your hand, not to come empty-handed. It's appropriate to respect people's homes and
Right.
be courteous. Be courteous, and especially in the times that we living in now, that people they're out of work, they're losing things. um Come bearing gifts instead of taking away from homes.
Right.
Mm.
Right. And I could oppose to that because I'm from the South, and that's kind of a rural thing, I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty sure. I'm a hundred
That's
percent,
pretty much
ninety
universal.
percent. Yeah, I'm a hundred. No, but look, listen. I'm 100% sure that that came from the slaves. That when you bring something, you come to a gathering or a get together or anything. You bring something to the table, and that's kind of like in a sense of that's not being that's gathering favor even if you don't know somebody, like I mean when we was back in those holidays, I'm not too ashamed to say that my family at one point before I came to my awakening in 2015, that we were into those holidays like Thanksgiving and stuff like that. There will be people that will walk through the door that the whole family don't even know. You know what I mean? The whole family don't even know them. They know them from so say and he say and see say, and you know what I'm saying. They might know them from down the line, but they don't really know them.
Oh,
They're not. But if
my
they
bad,
bring
Cam too.
something, but if they bring something, then they kind of bypass that. They bring a plate or anything. They family now. Like it's a certain type of favor, and in a way, when we take that and we look at that back into scripture, that played a lot of part in a lot of stuff. You know what I'm saying? When
Mm.
Abraham and when the guy came to the Pharaoh and stuff like that, they always brought gifts. You know what I mean? So in the sense of that,
Yeah.
when we looking at our king, you know what I'm saying, our Messiah, our most high, you know, we should all, that was something that was in the scriptures that was always done to the king. So when we look at the King of Kings, we should always bring something. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying bring no sacrifice, because I believe that the sacrifice was done with Yeshua. You know what I'm saying? But we when you say in Yeshua Jesus' name, you know what I'm saying? When you say that, that means you're bringing something to the king. I don't, I mean, I just think that favor is always present in the scriptures, that even through kings, minor kings, you know what I'm saying, that you always bring
even
something to the table.
even
Yeah.
before
Go ahead.
Pharaoh got his new name, Pharaoh, the king was about to kill him for letting the dead lie in the street. But he came up there
Right.
with his family in their silk robes and they nice horse and they jewels. And the king said, "Oh, okay,
Now
never mind."
he was gonna kill him because he was taking money from people for burying just to bury the dead. And then he told him why he did it and everything else. And the king was surprised that not only did he take the money, but he did something with it. And it surprised the king that he had, was wise enough to do something to not just blow the money, but to acquire and acquire people, servants, and a small army or whatever, and to dress them up and deck them out, and then give a nice, beautiful horse to the king and give him gifts and all. So everything that he had taken, he had done something with it, multiplied it or whatever, and then kind of gave it back to the king. And that's how he found his favor with him. But the whole time we saw how wicked he really, really was, to actually charge people to bury somebody. You know what I'm saying? Right. So that's something that we can thank all the pharaohs that have came after for why it costs us to bury our dead. And why funeral expenses are so daggone expensive.
Right.
So there you go, right there. There's a scripture for you from earlier on that it was because of Pharaoh, because of Rickion Pharaoh, that people are now accustomed to having to pay huge funeral expenses. So
that's that insurance money right there, huh?
But I wanted to go ahead and say my apologies, Misalaki Cam 2 player. I didn't realize. So I saw what you wrote, and I understand from here on out. I understand. So thank you, sis. Or I can say auntie. I can say auntie right there. Cam 2 player. That's auntie right there.
Right. But I want to say this right quick. Ross, man, I take my head off to you, brother. Cause look, you've read a lot. You killing it with the reading right now, man. Like you're doing it right now. If we had the DJ thing to put the audience on, and, we need,
man, it's
right?
all the Most High, man. I'll tell you now, and I can't stress this enough. The humbleness that we all got to walk with. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying. I do. But the humbleness that we all got to walk with is every gift that we've been given that, makes us look smart, sound smart, sound wise or whatever. These are all gifts from the Most High. So no matter what crown anybody tries to place upon me, it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to him. And I give it back to him. It's all his glory. If it wasn't for him putting 14 and a half, 3/4 years of punishment on my life as a kid before I turned 18. So, and having nothing else to do besides read dictionaries, read encyclopedias, read comic books, and get familiar with these long drawn out words that I didn't understand and forced me to look up the definitions and this, that, and the third. If it wasn't for that punishment, I wouldn't have this gift of reading because I didn't like to read.
That part there. All praise to the Most High.
So no matter what, it's all his glory. It's all his glory. And I appreciate that, people enjoy my reading, but it's all the Most High's gift. It's all his glory. All praise and honor and esteem to Yahuwah, to the Most High Yah. But let's go ahead and keep it rolling, family, because we got just 2 more chapters.
What?
Yeah, we're at chapter 18. I said we're gonna read. I put on the post from 10 to 20. So yeah, I want to get this wrapped up. Right. But I also want to get that a good understanding and that good dialogue of what we're getting. So yeah, all thanks and praise. Thank you, family. I appreciate y'all as well. And I thank y'all and I received that. But I got to give it right back to the Most High. Even though you gave it to me, I give it back to him.
Hey, what I told you earlier on Facebook, on Coon Book, brother, I told you, look, this kingdom work. This kingdom work, baby.
Thank you. All praise to the Most High, yeah. So let's go start it up at 18. And Abraham now rose and did all that Elohim had ordered him. And he took the men of his household and those bought with his money, and he circumcised them as Yahuwah had commanded. And there was not one left whom he did not circumcise. And Abram and his son Ishmael were circumcised in the flesh of their foreskin. 13 years old was Ishmael when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And in the 3rd day, Abraham went out of his tent and sat at the door to enjoy the heat of the sun during the pain of his flesh. And Yahuwah appeared to him in the plain of Mamre and sent 3 of his ministering angels to visit him. And he was sitting at the door of the tent, and he lifted his eyes and saw, and lo, 3 men were coming from a distance. And he rose up and ran to meet them, and he bowed down to them and brought them into his house. And he said to them, if now I have found favor in your sight, turn in and eat a morsel of bread. And he pressed them, and they turned in, and he gave them water, and he washed their feet, and he placed them under a tree at the door of the tent. And Abraham ran and took a calf, a tender and good, and he hastened to kill it. And he gave it to his servant Eliezer to dress. And Abraham came to Sarah into the tent and said to her, make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes to cover the pot containing the meat. And she did so. And Abraham hastened and brought before them butter and milk, beef and mutton, and gave it before them to eat before the flesh of the calf was sufficiently done. And they did eat. And when they had done eating, one of them said to him, I will return to thee according to the time of life, and Sarah, thy wife, shall have a son. And the men afterward departed and went their ways to the places to which they were sent. In those days, all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah and a whole 5 cities were exceedingly wicked and sinful against Yahuwah. And they provoked Yahuwah with their abominations. And they strengthened in aging abominably and scornfully before Yahuwah. And their wickedness and crimes were in those days great before Yahuwah. And they had in their hand, or in their land, a very extensive valley, about half a day's walk. And in it there were fountains of water, and a great deal of herbage surrounding the water. And all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah went there 4 times in the year with their wives and their children, and all belonging to them. And they rejoiced there with timbrels and dancing. And in the time of rejoicing, they would all raise and lay hold of their neighbors' wives, and some the virgin daughters of their neighbors, and they enjoyed them. And each man saw his wife and daughter in the hands of his neighbor, and did not say a word. And they did so from morning to night. And they afterward returned home, each man to his house, each woman to her tent. So they always did 4 times in the year. Hold on, I got to stop for 1 second. That is just, see, this is the wickedness of why Sodom and Gomorrah had to go. And real quick, earlier up top, if you didn't catch this, Abraham had her make pot pies to put the meat of the calf inside the dough right up here. Yeah, right back here actually. 3 measures of meal, knead it. As to knead it is to roll out your dough, to make that a top, and to make cakes to cover the pot containing the meat. So that's a pot pie.
Yes.
All right. So, but just in case nobody caught that, but let's get, and so they did 4 times a year. But like I said, this is the disgustingness of one of the reasons why Sodom and Gomorrah had to go, because they're just going to go out there and have an orgy 4 times a year, giving up their daughters and trading wives and all this disgusting stuff. See, that's right. That's why they had to go. And so also, when a stranger came into their cities and brought goods which he had purchased with a view to dispose of there, the people of these cities would assemble, men, women, and children, young and old, and go to the man and take his goods by force, giving a little to each man until there was an end to all the goods of the owner in which he had brought into the land. And if the owner of the goods quarreled with them, saying, "What is this work which you have done to me?" then they would approach to him one by one, and each would show him the little which he took, and taunt him, saying, "I only took that little which thou didst give me." And when he heard this from them all, he would arise and go from them in sorrow and bitterness of soul. When and when they would arise and go after him and drive him out of the city with a great noise and tumult. So they would take his stuff and tease him, saying, "You only gave me this much," when they just took it from him, and then chase him out the city, like, and taunting him about it the whole daggone time. That's
Right.
And there was a man from the country of Elam who was leisurely going on the road, seated upon his ass, which carried a fine mantle of diverse colors, and the mantle was bound with a cord upon the ass. And when the man was on his journey, passing through the street of Sodom, when the sun set in the evening, it remained there in order to abide during the night, but no one would let him into his house. And at that time, there was in Sodom a wicked and mischievous man, one skillful to do evil, and his name was Hadad. And he lifted up his eyes, and he saw the traveler in the street of the city, and he came to him and said, "Whence comest thou? Whither thou dost go?" Or whither dost thou go? Yeah. And the man said to him, "I'm traveling from Hebron to Elam, where I belong. And as I passed, the sun set, and no one would suffer me to enter his house. Though I had bread and water, and also straw and provender for my ass, I am short of nothing." And Hadad answered and said to him, "All that thou shalt want shall be supplied by me. But in the street thou shalt not abide all night." And Hadad brought him into his house, and he took off the mantle from the ass with the cord, and brought them into his house. And he gave the ass straw, provender, whilst the traveler ate and drank in Hadad's house. And he abode there that night. And in the morning the traveler rose up early to continue his journey, when Hadad said to him, "Wait, comfort thy heart with a morsel of bread, and then go." And the man did so, and he remained with him. And they both ate and drank together during the day. And when the man rose up to go, Hadad said to him, "Behold, now the day is declining. Thou hadst better remain all night, that thy heart may be comforted." And he pressed him so that he tarried there all night. And on the second day he rose up early to go away, when Hadad pressed him, saying, "Comfort thy heart with a morsel of bread, and then go." And he remained and ate with him also the second day. And then the man rose up to continue his journey. And Hadad said to him, "Behold, now the day is declining. Remain with me to comfort thy heart, and in the morning rise up early and go thy way." And the man would not remain, but rose and saddled his ass. And whilst he was saddling his ass, the wife of Hadad said to her husband, "Behold, this man has remained with us for 2 days, eating and drinking. He has given us nothing. And now shall he go away from us without giving anything?" And Hadad said to her, "Be silent." And the man saddled his ass to go, and he asked Hadad to give him the cord and mantle to tie upon the ass. And Hadad said to him, "What sayest thou?" And he said to him, "That thou, my Adonai, shalt give me the cord and the mantle made with diverse colors, which thou didst conceal with thee in thy house, to take care of it." And Hadad answered the man, saying, "This is the interpretation of thy dream. The cord which thou didst see means that thy life will be lightened out like a cord. And having seen the mantle colored with all sorts of colors means that thou shalt have a vineyard in which thou wilt plant trees of all fruits." And the traveler answered, saying, "Not so, my Adonai, for I was awake when I gave thee the cord, and also a mantle woven with different colors, which thou didst take off the ass to put them by for me." And Hadad answered and said, "Surely I have told you the interpretation of thy dream, and it is good, and it is a good dream, and this is the interpretation thereof. Now the sons of men give me 4 pieces of silver, which is my charge for interpreting dreams. And of thee only I require 3 pieces of silver." And the man was provoked at the words of Hadad. and he cried bitterly, and he brought Hadad to Sirach, judge of Sodom. And the man laid his cause before Sirach, and the judge, when Hadad replied, saying, "It is not so, but thus the matter stands." And the judge said to the traveler, "This man Hadad telleth thee the truth, or telleth thee truth, for he is famed in the cities for the accurate interpretation of dreams." And the man cried at the word of the judge, and he said, "Not so, my Adonai, for it was in the day that I gave him the cord and mantle which was upon the ass, in order to put them by in his house. And they both disputed before the judge, the one saying, thus the matter was, and the other declaring otherwise. And Hadad said to the man, "Give me 4 pieces of silver that I charge for my interpretations of dreams. I will not make any allowance, and give me the expense of the 4 meals that thou didst eat in my house." And the man said to Hadad, "Truly I will pay thee for what I ate in thy house. Only give me the cord and mantle which thou didst conceal in thy house." And Hadad replied before the judge and said to the man, "Did I not tell thee the interpretation of thy dream? The cord means that thy days shall be prolonged like a cord, and the mantle that thou wilt have a vineyard in which thou wilt plant all kinds of fruit trees. This is the proper interpretation of thy dream. Now give me the 4 pieces of silver that I require as a compensation, for I will make thee no allowance." And the man cried at the words of Hadad, and they both quarreled before the judge, and the judge gave orders to his servants, who drove them rashly from the house. And they went away quarreling from the judge. When the people of Sodom heard them, and they gathered about them, and they exclaimed against the stranger, and they drove him rashly from the city. And the man continued his journey upon his ass with bitterness of soul, lamenting and weeping. And whilst he was going along, he wept at what had happened to him in the corrupt city of Sodom. And this man, I guess we could stop just for 1 second, because he gonna sit there and take his stuff, and then gonna sit there and be like, "Oh, that was a dream. You didn't have none of those things. You don't have that. That's a dream. As a matter of fact, here's the interpretation of your dream. And so go ahead and pay me for this dream that you dreamt up about having this mantle and this cord wrapping around your donkey or whatever and holding it down. You must have dreamed. You dreamt all that. That never happened. Pay me for the interpretation of the dream." You know what I'm saying? So this wickedness of these people. Whew. In the cities of Sodom had 4 judges to 4 cities, and these were their names: Sirach in the city of Sodom, Shakad in Gomorrah, Zabnak in Admah, and Menon in Zeboim. And Eleazar's, Abraham's servant, applied to them different names, and he converted Sirach to Shakra, Sharkad to Shakrah, and Zebnak to Kazboim or Kazobim, and Menon to Matzladan. And by desire of their 4 judges, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah had beds erected in the streets of the cities. And if a man came to these places, they laid hold of him and brought him to one of their beds, and by force made him to lie in them. And as he lay down, 3 men would stand at his head and 3 at his feet, and measure him by length of the bed. And if the man was less than the bed, by these 6 men was less than the bed, these 6 men would stretch him at the end. And when he cried out to them, they would not answer him. And if he was longer than the bed, they would draw together the 2 sides of the bed at each end until the man had reached the gates of death. Ooh. So squeeze him. And if he continued to cry out to them, they would answer him, saying, "Thus shall it be done to a man that come into our land." And when the men heard all these things that people of the cities of Sodom did, they refrained from coming there. I wouldn't go there neither. And when a poor
Right.
man, yeah, man,
Right,
nothing.
bro. Right. Hey, look, all I can say on this part is wickedness, wickedness, wickedness. Like, oh man, oh, wickedness, man. Like it wasn't just the stuff that they was doing wickedness, but they was hustling people too, hustling people on the dreams. You know,
Robbing them,
robbing
everything.
them. Like this is like when we sit there and think about this. This is the society that they're trying to push on our children. You know what I mean? When we sit there and
Mm-hmm.
think about this,
It's not
I don't want
trying.
to say
It's actually happening.
right.
Yeah.
It's
When they
happening
got
every day.
these homo cartoons and stuff like this is the society. They know what this is gonna do. They know what type of sin this is gonna they know what type of sin this is gonna bring. Like they didn't like when we reading this about Sodom, like they didn't care. This was a all fair. This was a
Mm-hmm.
all what I'm saying? This was a ready set go thing. Like the people that came in there, what I'm saying? Like they was just licks. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to use street terminology, but if
Hey,
you know what a lick is, like
yeah,
they was just licks, man. And
Yeah,
that's
and
all I gotta say on that wickedness.
they were
What you
having
got,
these
sis?
orgies 4 times a year. Said they were having these orgies 4 times a year. Here in the United States, you got one going on every weekend at some swingers club or some, God for other forsaken place going on. We are definitely
Sex
living
rings,
in the days.
mm-hmm.
Exactly. We're definitely living in the days of Noah. If y'all can't see that, I
right?
definitely can't open your eyes
Yeah.
because even with the violence that's going on, even in our own communities, we are killing one another for tennis shoes, for gold, for
That part.
we're lying, we're manipulating each other for financial gain at every turn.
That's that capitalism. Capital. How you say that? Give me a piggyback.
Capitalism.
Route capitalism. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we
Yeah.
we obviously see, from scripture right here that our oppressors had a precursor to go ahead and go off of. So then Willie Lynch letters and all that stuff. I mean,
Right. Right.
it's for me. It just historically it just jumps right on out to me to where it's like they knew how to corrupt us. They went, they
Yeah.
read these
They,
words, they had to have read this stuff, and
Yeah.
they saw the
yep.
wickedness of these places, and they had went about every way that they possibly could to turn our neighborhoods and our community into these wicked things to take us that
Yeah.
much further from the most high. I mean, once again, we've been using it so many times, and I don't know how long now since all of our awakening about Psalm 83 and the fact that they wanted to make Yasharel never be known as a nation again.
Right. Right.
So, I mean,
It's
all
the
of
curse of
this,
Balaam. It's the curse of Balaam.
it's
It's the
more
curse
than
of
that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's
It's
more
more.
than
It's
that.
way more than that. Right. Yeah.
But see, the whole thing, I mean, we've had this problem even with our own nation. Um, I can hear all that in the background. It's kind of like echoing back through. Like I can hear all of it. All right. It's- but anyway, we've had this problem with our nation for such a long time, scripturally all the way up until now, of falling away from the Most High. Um, we would get right for a while, follow Him, be righteous in His eyes, and then through one way or another, we would depart from Him and turn from Him and start doing wicked things in our own hearts. You know what I'm saying? So the this is something that we got to come back from. This 400-year prophecy is, I believe in my heart, that those of us that have woken up and those of us that will wake up from the house of Yasharel, from the tribe of Judah, from all the tribes, all 12 tribes. When we all of us wake back up from this, we got 400 years to look back on and see how we were living and the consequences that we just got done sustaining for 400 years. This is the longest captivity that we've ever been through.
Right.
We got 400 years to look back and see this is the consequence of turning against the Most High.
Yeah.
Of going out of his ways. And as a nation, we can't have this no more. No more. We can't be living like this. We can't let none of this stuff take over our communities. That's why I stress so much to heal our hoods, heal our households. I mean, it starts in our house, but we got to heal our hoods. If we have to.
Right.
Otherwise, you know what I'm saying? I mean, as Mr. Jacoba has said plenty of times, that even the riffraff is going to come with us, is getting kicked up out of here with us. But once we get back to the land, oh yeah, the Most High is going to deal with all the riffraff in the wilderness. Everybody that's not on board with him and how he wants things, how he wants his nation to be, they ain't gonna be. Just gonna put it that way. We ain't gonna have no more of that. We ain't gonna have no more of whatever these glorified, so-called rappers and everything out here destroying our sons and daughters with this filth and everything else. Right. Them knuckleheads, oh no. They gone. We gonna take care of them. The whole kingdom, we gonna take care of all of that. All of that's gonna get wiped out. You know what I'm saying? So they got probably one or two choices. They can stay here in Babylon and burn up, or come on and take this covenant and repent, take this covenant and be a part of the Most High's kingdom. And if you don't want to do that, well, we're going to take care of you in the wilderness, because we ain't going to have it no more. The nation is not going to have this no more. We don't want to go back to any more captivities ever again.
Yeah. No, we don't. Right. And I see that individual fight. Like, I don't know about anybody else, but I have a relationship with God, but when things are going good, I kind of I turn my back on that relationship with God. And then when things are bad again, hey God, it's me, Sharita. You see what's going on here. After I'd have made all these horrible choices and my choices have caught up with me, I go back to God, trying to plead my case to, get me out of the trouble that I'm in. And I'm grateful that I've fallen underneath that grace, and that he just been, so good to me, because I don't deserve it at all. But pray for me to make sure that I just keep my eyes on the prize, and that I don't go back to the things that I used to do.
Right. And we'll pray for that. It's all about that favor. And when you see this stuff that's going on in Sodom, we got to understand that, you see, I think we was talking about this last show about the sin. Sin always come with something. And we see here, because a lot of biblical people, we always put the sin on, on what they was doing. We know for sure that Sodom and Gomorrah had some homosexual stuff going on. But it, in the sense of it, what did all that bring? It brought society out to the point to where they were robbing people, hustling people. This was an evil city that had to be dealt with. You know what I mean? This was an evil city that had to be dealt with. But it started off from this something, this sin. You know what I mean? And when we look at the sin and what the sin always come with something. And that's why what to piggyback on what Brother Rouse said, that when we go back into the land, and you see it in scripture that the Most High makes you pass through the rod. He said he's going to deal with the rebels in the wilderness. You know what I'm saying? So all Israel shall be saved. But, not everybody's going to make it, and to go back on that part to where we say we are going to be weeping. We're going to be weeping. We're just not going to, this second Exodus that we're praying for. I pray for it every day, Understand me. I pray for this second Exodus every day. But I'm under the assumption through the scriptures that this is not going to be what you want. You're going to see family members that's going to get dealt with. You're going to see people that's going to get dealt with. Yeah, you're going to see people with you're
gonna have
are
your
we going to be
knuckleheaded
crying?
nephew or your knuckleheaded cousin that keep on acting up, and that we're gonna lay hands on him and put him down. And you either with the covenant or you gonna lay down with them.
Right. And
because we ain't going back. You know what I'm saying? So and as we go further, trust and believe, there's gonna be some more to this covers. Once we get, into Moses, Caleb, and them and Joshua, when we get into those stories in this right here, whoo,
right. And so while we in this society, that shouldn't be a reason, you know what I'm saying, to give and I don't want to say it like that because this might be a little, what you call them, but we shouldn't give those, you know what I'm saying, because everybody got them. We Judah. We know who he is. We stiff neck. You know what I'm saying? But everybody has those maybe a homosexual nephew or a homosexual cousin, or you shouldn't want that fire to come up on them. You know what I mean? You should address that right there. You know what I mean? And because we're gonna be weeping. It's gonna be a lot of, and it's just not just the homosexual stuff. It's gonna be everything. He's gonna make the rebels pass through. These rappers that we listening to, and we thinking that, oh yeah, it sound good, but they gonna have to pass through that ride, and we gonna be weeping. And it's just, man, I can't stress it more, brother. I always say that I think they gonna call this my line, but the words are jumping off the page, and it's coming back as prophecy. As prophecy. It's like as you reading, it's like I can't even stay for. Like I said, I got a notebook, but I can't even write everything down that I won't put down. Because it's so much.
Yeah, everything that we're seeing today applies. Everything that we're reading right here, it applies to our life and our circumstances as we know it right here in this moment. And that's really scary to see words from the past look at our future, our present.
Right. Right.
I was trying to make that back to full page right there, full screen. I hope I didn't mute you, sis, but you should be able to. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and keep pushing because we are getting at that 3-hour spot, and I really wasn't. I was trying to hurry up and get this knocked out before then. All right. So when a poor man came into their land, they would give him silver and gold and cause a proclamation in the whole city not to give him a morsel of bread to eat. And if the stranger should remain there some days and die from hunger, not having been able to obtain a morsel of bread, then at his death, all the people of the city will come and take their silver and gold, which they had given him. So they'll give him money, but they ain't going to let you buy nothing. And those that could recognize the silver could not, or those that could recognize the silver or gold which they had given him, took it back. And at his death, they also stripped him of his garments, and they would fight about them. And he that prevailed over his neighbor took them. And they would, after that, carry him and bury him under some of the shrubs in the deserts. So they did all the days to anyone that came to them and died in their land. And in the course of time, Sarah sent Eliezer to Sodom to see Lot and inquire after his welfare. And Eliezer went to Sodom, and he met a man of Sodom fighting with a stranger. And the man of Sodom stripped the poor man of all his clothes and went away. And this poor man cried to Eliezer and supplicated his favor on account of what the man of Sodom had done to him. And he said to him, why dost thou act thus to the poor man who came to thy land? And the man of Sodom answered Eliezer, saying, is this man thy brother? Or have the people of Sodom made thee a judge this day, that thou speakest about this man? And Eliezer strove with the man of Sodom on account of the poor man. And Eliezer approached to recover the poor man's clothes from the man of Sodom, he hastened and with a stone smote Eliezer on the forehead, in the forehead. And the blood flowed copiously from Eliezer's forehead. And when the man saw the blood, he caught hold of Eliezer, saying, give me my hire for having rid thee of this bad blood that is in thy forehead, for such is the custom and law in our land. And Eliezer said to him, thou hast wounded me, and requirest me to pay thee hire? And Eliezer would not hearken to the words of the man of Sodom. And the man laid hold of Eliezer and brought him to Shakra, the judge of Sodom, for judgment. And the man spoke to the judge, saying, I beseech thee, my Adonai, thus has this man done. For I smote him with a stone, that the blood flowed from his forehead, and he is unwilling to give me my hire. And the judge said to Eliezer, this man speaketh truth to thee. Give him his hire, for this is the custom in our land. And Eliezer heard the words of the judge, and he lifted up a stone and smote the judge. And the stone struck on his forehead, and the blood flowed copiously from the forehead of the judge. And Eliezer said, if this then is the custom in your land, give thou unto this man what I should have given him, for this has been thy decision. Thou didst decree it. And Eliezer left the man of Sodom with the judge, and he went away. I'm sorry, that's funny. Oh man. And when the kings of Elam had made war with the kings of Sodom, the kings of Elam captured all the property of Sodom, and they took Lot captive with his property. And then when it was told to Abraham, he went and made war with the kings of Elam. And he recovered from their hands all the property of Lot as well as the property of Sodom. At that time, the wife of Lot bare him a daughter, and he called her name Pelith. Paltith or Pelith, saying, because Elohim had delivered him and his whole household from the kings of Elam. And Paltith, daughter of Lot, grew up, and one of the men of Sodom took her for a wife. And a poor man came into the city to seek a maintenance, and he remained in the city some days. And all the people of Sodom caused a proclamation of their custom not to give this man a morsel of bread to eat until he dropped dead upon the earth. And they did so. And Paltith, the daughter of Lot, saw this man lying in the streets, starving with hunger, and no one would give him anything to keep him alive. And he was just upon the point of death. And her soul was filled with pity on account of the man. And she fed him secretly with bread for many days. And the soul of this man was revived. For when she went forth to fetch water, she would put the bread in the water pitcher. And when she came to the place where the poor man was, she took the bread from the pitcher and gave it him to eat. So she did many days. And all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah wondered how this man had bare starvation for so many days. And they said to each other that this can only be that he eats and drinks, for no man can bear starvation for so many days, or live as this man has, without even his countenance changing. And 3 men concealed themselves in a place where the poor man was stationed, to know who it was that brought him bread to eat. And Paltith, daughter of Lot, went forth that day to fetch water, and she put bread into her pitcher of water, and she went to draw water by the poor man's place. And she took out the bread from the pitcher and gave it to the poor man, and he ate. And the 3 men saw what Paltith did to the poor man, and they said to her, "It is thou when who has supported it is thou then who has supported him, and therefore has he not starved, nor changed in appearance, nor died like the rest." And the 3 men went out of the place in which they were concealed, and they seized Paltith, and the bread which was in the poor man's hand. And they took Paltith and brought her before their judges. And they said to them, "Thus did she do, and it is she who supplied the poor man with bread. Therefore did he not die all this time. Now therefore declare to us the punishment due to this woman for having transgressed our law." And the people of Sodom and Gomorrah assembled and kindled a fire in the street of the city. And they took the woman and cast her into the fire, and she was burned to ashes. In the city of Admah, there was a woman whom they did the like. For a traveler came into the city of Admah to abide there all night, with the intention of going home in the morning. And he sat opposite the door of the house of the young woman's father to remain there. As the sun had set when he had reached that place, and the young woman saw him sitting by the door of the house. And he asked her for a drink of water, and she said to him, "Who art thou?" And he said to her, "I was this day going on the road, and reached here when the sun set, so I will abide here all night, and in the morning I will arise early and continue my journey." And the young woman went into the house and fetched the man bread and water to eat and drink. And this affair became known to the people of Admah. And they assembled and brought the young woman before the judges, that they should judge her for this act. And the judge said, "The judgment of death must pass upon this woman, because she transgressed our law. And this, therefore, is the decision concerning her." And the people of those cities assembled and brought out the young woman and anointed her with honey from head to foot, as the judge had decreed. And they placed her before a swarm of bees, which were there in their hives. And the bees flew upon her and stung her at her whole body, and her whole body was swelled. And the young woman cried out on account of the bees, but no one took notice of her or pitied her. And her cries ascended to heaven. And Yahuwah was provoked at this, and all the works of the cities of Sodom, for they had abundance of food, and they had tranquility amongst them, and still would not sustain the poor and the needy. And in those days their evil doings and sins became great before Yahuwah. And Yahuwah sent for 2 of the angels that had come to Abraham's house to destroy Sodom and its cities. And the angels rose up from the door of Abraham's tent after they had eaten and drunk, and they reached Sodom in the evening. And Lot was then sitting in the gate of Sodom. And when he saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed down to the ground. And he pressed them greatly and brought them into his house. And he gave them victuals, which they ate. And they abode all night in his house. And the angel said to Lot, "Arise and go forth from this place, thou and all belonging to thee, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of this city, for Yahuwah will destroy this place." And the angels laid hold upon the hand of Lot, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hands of his children, and all belonging to him, and they brought him forth and set him without the cities. And they said to Lot, "Escape for thy life." And he fled, and all belonging to him. Then Yahuwah rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah and upon all the cities brimstone and fire from Yahuwah out of heaven. And he overthrew these cities, all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities that which grew upon the ground. And Ado, the wife of Lot, looked back to see the destruction of the cities, for her compassion was moved on account of her daughters who remained in Sodom, and they did not go with her. And when she looked back, she became a pillar of salt, and is yet in that place unto this day. And the oxen which stood in that place daily licked upon the salt to the extremities of her feet, and in the morning it would spring forth fresh or afresh, and they again licked it up unto this day. And Lot and two of his daughters that remained with him fled and escaped to the cave of Adullam, and they remained there for some time. And Abraham rose up early in the morning to see what had been done to the cities of Sodom, and he looked and beheld the smoke of the cities going up like the smoke of a furnace. And Lot and his two daughters remained in the cave, and they made their father drink wine, and they lay with him. For they said, there is no man upon earth that could raise up seed from them, for they thought that the whole earth was destroyed. And they both lay with their father, and they conceived and bare sons. And the firstborn was called the name of her son Moab, saying, from my father did I conceive him, and is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger also called her son Benami, and is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day. And after this, Lot and his two daughters went away from there, and he dwelt on the other side of the Jordan with his two daughters and their sons. And the sons of Lot grew up, and they went and took themselves wives from the land of Canaan. And they begat children, and they were fruitful and multiplied. And at that time, Abraham journeyed from the plain of Mamre, and he went to the land of Philistines, and he dwelt in Gerar. And it was in the 25th year of Abraham's being in the land of Canaan, and the 100th year of the life of Abraham, that he came to Gerar in the land of the Philistines. And when they entered the land, he said to Sarah his wife, say that thou art my sister, to anyone that shall ask thee, in order that we may escape the evil of the inhabitants of the land. And Abraham was dwelling in the land of the Philistines. The servants of Abimelech, king of the Philistines, saw that Sarah was exceedingly beautiful, and they asked Abraham concerning her, and he said, she is my sister. And the servants of Abimelech went to Abimelech, saying, a man from the land of Canaan is come to dwell in the land, and he has a sister that is exceedingly fair. And Abimelech heard the words of his servants who praised Sarah to him, and Abimelech sent his officers, and they brought Sarah to the king. And Sarah came to the house of Abimelech, and the king saw that Sarah was beautiful, and she pleased him exceedingly. And he approached her and said to her, what is that man to thee with whom thou didst come to our land? And Sarah answered and said, he is my brother. And we came from the land of Canaan to dwell wherever we could find a place. And Abimelech said to Sarah, behold, my land is before thee. Place thy brother in any part of this land that pleases thee, and it will be our duty to exalt and elevate him above all the people of the land, since he is thy brother. And Abimelech sent for Abraham, and Abraham came to Abimelech. And Abimelech said to Abraham, behold, I have given orders that thou shalt be honored as thou desirest, on account of thy sister Sarah. And Abraham went forth from the king, and the king's present followed him. As at evening time, before men lie down to rest, the king was sitting upon his throne, and a deep sleep fell upon him. And he lay upon the throne and slept till morning. And he dreamt that an angel of Yahuwah came to him with a drawn sword in his hand. And the angel stood over Abimelech and wished to slay him with the sword. And the king was terrified in his dream. And he said to the angel, and what have I sinned against thee, that thou comest to slay me with thy sword? And the angel answered and said to Abimelech, behold, thou diest on account of the woman which thou didst yesterday night with to bring to thy house, for she is a married woman, the wife of Abraham, who came to thy house. Now therefore return the man his wife, for she is his wife. And shouldest thou not return her, know that thou wilt surely die, thou and all belonging to thee. And on that night there was a great outcry in the land of the Philistines. And the inhabitants of the land saw the figure of a man standing with a drawn sword in his hand. And he smote the inhabitants of the land with the sword. Yea, he continued to smite them. And the angel of Yahuwah smote the whole land of the Philistines on that night. And there was a great confusion on that night and on the following morning. And every womb was closed, and all their issues, and the hand of Yahuwah was upon them on account of Sarah, wife of Abraham, whom Abimelech had taken. And in the morning Abimelech rose with terror and confusion, with a great dread, and he sent and had his servants called in, and he related his dream to them, and the people were greatly afraid. And one man standing amongst the servants of the king saying, O sovereign king, restore this woman to her husband, for he is her husband. For the like happened to the king of Egypt when this man came to Egypt. And he said concerning his wife, she is my sister. For such is his manner of doing when he cometh to dwell in the land in which he is a stranger. And Pharaoh sent and took this woman for a wife, and Yahuwah brought upon him grievous plagues until he returned the woman to her husband. Now therefore, O sovereign king, know what happened yesternight to the whole land, for there was a very great consternation and great pain and lamentation, and we know that it was on account of the woman which thou didst take. Now therefore restore this woman to her husband, and lest it should befall us all, as it did to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and his subjects, and that we may not die. And Abimelech hastened and called and had Sarah called for, and she came before him. And he had Abraham called for, and he came before him. And Abimelech said to them, what is this work you have been doing in saying you are brother and sister? And I took this woman for a wife. And Abraham said, because I thought I should suffer death on account of my wife. And Abimelech took flocks and herds and men servants and maid servants and 1,000 pieces of silver, and he gave them to Abraham, and he returned Sarah to him. And Abimelech said to Abraham, behold, the whole land is before thee. Dwell in it wherever thou shalt choose. And Abraham and Sarah, his wife, went forth from the king's presence with honor and respect, and they dwelt in the land, even in Gerar. And all the inhabitants of the land of the Philistines and the king's servants were still in pain through the plague which the angel had afflicted upon them the whole night on account of Sarah. And Abimelech sent for Abraham, saying, pray now for thy servants to Yahuwah thy Elohim, that he may put away this mortality from amongst us. And Abraham prayed on account of Abimelech and his subjects, and Yahuwah heard the prayer of Abraham, and he healed Abimelech and all his subjects. So that's going to wrap up the reading. But as we see, once again, in the scriptures here, that let me go ahead and cut this on off, hopefully to catch up and stay smooth. But we can see the reoccurring theme of these wicked cities of back in the day, in these biblical times of Abraham, how they were so wicked they would kill a man over his wife.
Yeah, I really like.
Yeah, one of y'all got a phone or something else playing in the background.
Can y'all hear? You can hear me clear?
Yep. Yep.
All right, but what I took from a lot of that, and even from the very beginning of it, it shows the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah. when I
All
wanted
these
to point out
places.
that part. Yeah, I wanted to point out the point from the very beginning that you know that's the effects of growing up in Sodom and Gomorrah. What Lot's daughters did. Lot's daughters thought it was cool to go ahead and just lay with their daddy to get more children, and they didn't even know that the rest of the world, like, they thought he was the only man in the world, like, type state. But you know like, that is the effect of Sodom and Gomorrah. You know what I mean? Like, they had been raised there. They have been raised there in Sodom and Gomorrah, and they thought it was nothing to lay with their daddy. And that's what I took from it. And I'm like, yo, like, the society that we live in, we can kind of equivalate that with America, the way this society is going. you know and we think that don't have an effect on the youth. You know what I mean? And a lot of people don't know that. You know I'm up here chopping it up with y'all, but I'm 29, and I've grown up with the effects of, just seeing from my lost walk that I was in. You know what I'm saying? That, a lot of things we think that is kosher. You know what I'm saying? Like, when I look at my generation now, even from the eyes, what I'm saying, through my awakening, I'm awake now. You know what I mean? But when I look at the generation that I'm in now, I see those effects of growing up in America. And they think that a lot of stuff is just, they just think that a lot of stuff is kosher.
They
Or they
think
don't
it's
have a
everywhere.
problem. Yeah, they don't have a problem with doing stuff. They don't have a problem with just, I mean, it's unexplainable. What you got, sis?
Well, what I saw reoccurring is, the city, pretty much full of debauchery and um, being moved around, being told it's time to go. This is not for you. When you see these things, it's time to go. And it just kindles that fire in myself that, that I need to be prepared, to to be prepared to go wherever that means to go. I mean, right now I can't really afford to go anywhere. I would love to be able to go to the motherland, but I even see the same type of stuff going on there. So it's like, man, God, I really need you to work this miracle. I need you to work this revelation. Um I need you to do everything that you said you was going to do in this Bible so that we can have that 1,000 years of peace. Um because I can't continue to live in the world that I'm living in now. This is starting to be more than I can bear. I'm tired of seeing what's going on in this world. I'm tired of I the the pain and injustices that go on in this world. And it's just like, how can you just let me stay here? How can you let how I need you to do what you said you're going to do, and that's really my prayer to him. I don't want to, rush him. Seeing I just woke up, so look, I ain't trying to hurry you along, but I see it and so clearly now, and it's like, how did you miss this?
Mm.
Wow. And it's just so much. We see a lot of stuff from these scriptures that are reappearing in modern day society. You know what I mean? And when I look at Sodom and Gomorrah, just everything that you just read, Brother Rouse, on Sodom and Gomorrah. You know what I mean? Like, me being from that younger generation, I see I see where we are with it. You know what I mean? And I see the effects of, rap music, and I mean, not just all rap music, but you know what I mean? That rap music, that major rap music, I see the effects of that. We just don't, when you read when you was reading about Sodom and Gomorrah, and you was going through some of the stuff that they was going through, I really just envisioned my generation. You know what I mean? I grew up in that generation, and and I just thank the Most High that He called me. You know what I mean? I think that He called me. You know what I'm saying? So I can move my family away from a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? Before my awakening, I was raising my daughter in this type of society. And just to see the effects of it. You know what I'm saying? Right there in the scriptures, and I see it every day. I see it every day. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to, what I'm saying, take a shot at a lot of stuff that my people are into, but you know what I'm saying, like Kemet, the stuff that the people are into. You know what I'm saying? You see the stuff that they're into that is just you know it's nothing new under the sun. That's all I could say. It's nothing new under the sun when you come down to my generation and you just see that we're just far out there. You know what I mean? We're just so far out there because sin never comes with just sin. Sin don't just come with nothing after that, and then you can just it comes with a bondage, and I see that bondage on my generation.
Yeah. I mean, these are the things that are glorified in secular rap, secular hip hop, and in pop culture, and music, movies, all that stuff. And
Right,
once again, we know who's controlling it. Like we said last time, we can all we can just to keep this going is the Prince of the Airwaves. We know who his people are that are controlling these messages, and they're directing them to us to make us like Sodom and Gomorrah and not like Yasharel, so that way we'll be
right,
destroyed and not be with the Father. So, I mean, all these things that, yeah, while reading all of that and going, just looking at it again, just you can see how some of these customs are almost popularized right now.
right. That's that part.
They both definitely are. I mean, you have clubs where you can go and do all the things that you shouldn't be doing. You have the hip hop industry, and we're starting to see it come apart at the seams with all this stuff coming out about all the homosexuality that's going on within there, and all these rituals that these men have to do um, with um, dressing in drag. We're seeing the um, the Sambos just come out in droves trying to convince us about the jab. We're just getting hit everywhere we go, and I can't understand how I was so blind to what was
Right, right,
around me.
Yeah. I mean, all this and the other reoccurring theme that we see with Abraham and Sarah saying that, she's my sister, is because just like in Egypt, these places they don't fear the Most High. They don't have His ways.
it was
They
perverted.
they they're all perverted, and they will kill you and take your woman.
Mm.
That, and so Abraham was exposing their sin and their wickedness by saying, she's my sister, even though she's my wife. And then now you getting ready to go try to lay up with this woman. But if I wouldn't have said that she was my sister, you would have killed me and taken her, and you wouldn't have learned your lesson.
Right.
Right,
So these these ways of, how can I say this? There are some people that would try to paint Abraham as a liar and a man of sin because he had said that she's his sister, because he was a liar and lied about it. But he had good reason to. He had very good reason to. Otherwise, they would have killed him, like I said. And so these things, these counter conversations, whether it be Terah talking back to Nimrod, or Abraham talking back to his father and exposing that these wooden dolls of wood and stone, all that, they can't save you, all these things, there's these counter conversations that are supposed to stand out to us and show us where our faith is supposed to be, for one, in the Most High Yah, to not worship wood and stone or anything made or created by human hands. And then also you keep getting these messages of not being wicked like those people,
Yep.
not
Right.
following those types of traditions of orgies and then thieving people, beating them down, taking their stuff, gang culture, robbing people, and things
Right.
like this. But once again, these are the same wicked things that they've popularized and made our communities be like. And so this is the other reason why I say we have to heal our hoods. We have to
Right.
we
Have
got to
y'all
stop this foolishness.
have y'all also noticed here recently? I really haven't been trying to keep up. It was really by accident, but we have our male gangster rap, but here recently, like it's like they coming after the women too.
Oh
Like
yeah, they've been doing that.
Oh yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
seems more. I mean, like they rapping just like the dudes now, like with the guns, and I mean, it typically it's been more hoochie mama kind of stuff. We're being, sex, um, idols towards people, but now it's this it is different. It's really different, and now that I see it, I see that you know I see where the target had been put on black men with police violence and how they orchestrated that through the music industry. And I see now that they're gunning for the women too in that exact same manner.
Right, right. And to piggyback on what sister just said, like she's absolutely right, because I came to my awakening in 2015 for those out there who might not be knowing, I came to my awakening in 2015 and through a great man, Pastor Darby. And I've really I've looked at it now to where we are now in society, and I see that I have a 10-year-old daughter now. You know what I mean? So she's growing up with this 5 years of me being lost, and then this switch to me and my awakening, and I've had to ban like I don't mean to put no names out there, but Meg the Stallion, she's not she's definitely just banned. My daughter is banned from listening to that. Cardi B, my daughter is banned from listening to that. And I see what you're talking about, sis. That is more now they're coming after the women now. They're coming after the women in this vicious way to where it's like I can't let my daughter. I have to literally monetize and literally pay attention to what my daughter is watching on YouTube. Because she get it from her friends, she get it from this one, she get it from that one, and it's like it's so many venues that I have to just cut off, because it's like they're attacking her, and I definitely feel what sis is saying because they're coming at her through Disney, they're coming at her through all kind of ways, and
Mhm.
that's just the switch of it. Like I definitely feel what you're talking about because I have a 10-year-old daughter that I have to make understand in a way. She's went from a transition. You know what I'm saying, of me just being young and wild to me trying to put some order down. But I definitely feel that.
And see, they've been attacking women for a long time. And if you go back anytime, well, I don't know. Now that I'm definitely woke, I don't watch cable. I don't have cable. I got
Yeah.
internet, and so that's it. But if you end up coming across any old movies or whatever, I mean, you can see it in some of the older movies of yes, that trans Barbie doll, that right there, yes, Miss B, that right there, they just came out with that recently, but then you also got, you know, look at the movie. Let's take a trip through memory lane. Look at the movie Thelma and Louise.
Hmm.
Right,
All
right,
right. That's just one example off the top of my head. Now there's plenty more. There's plenty more movies out there where they've transgenderized the masculine role. And even when I'm at work at the restaurant, serving tables and whatnot, and I look up at some of the TV shows up on there, I'm seeing more and more in some of these different mechanic shops where they're displaying women working on cars like a man,
Yeah.
doing all this manly stuff. Now, I'm not here to sit here and say what a woman should or should not do, me personally, but the word says that, we aren't supposed to exchange garments, meaning that a man is not supposed to wear any garment of a woman and a woman is not supposed to wear any garment of a man. And so this is another way of exchanging garments when a woman steps into the role of a man doing manly servitude. That's not what y'all were put here for. And for a better explanation on this right here, I would suggest going to Thoughts Camera Action and looking into the
Definitely.
mothers and daughters of Yasharel, as well as the fathers and sons of Yasharel. Those two studies he did there, those studies right there, he did an excellent job. I'm not even going to sit here and try to pretend that I can regurgitate back how he did it. Just watch how that brother put it out.
Right.
Hario got tipped off. No, here he is. All right.
Yeah, I'm back.
So, but I'm not for sure if it froze up on us or what. I'm not seeing my little audio bubble.
We can hear you
moving or nothing like that. Oh, okay. It's just on my end. Then that's cool. But it's crazy to.
I think it froze this time. Can you hear me?
Roz, can y'all hear me? You
I
can hear
can
me,
hear.
sis?
I can.
Roz, I think you're muted, brother.
On it. Yeah, I clicked on it. I saw it. I guess it said my browser lost connection for a hot second. So I don't know when exactly that happened, but it's just messed up. All this transgenderism and everything else. They're trying to normalize with us, and these curses, all these different curses. I mean, that's why it's so important when we reach out to our people. We should come to them, if they have even a very limited amount of understanding of the scriptures. It is very important that we do show them the curses. And so that way, that good watering or that seed right there should help wake us up to who we are. Because in Deuteronomy 29
Right.
and in Deuteronomy 30, we see that once we recognize and know who we are by these curses, we're supposed to proclaim them to all nations. We're supposed to proclaim who we are to all nations by the blessing and the curse. This is scripture. So
Hallelujah.
so when we get these UA people out there trying to tell us that, well, you ain't supposed to, your identity is supposed to be in Christ, and your identity is your identity and stumbling. No, my identity is in the book. I know what curses I suffer. I know what curses I have suffered. I know the sins that I've committed through those curses being upon me and my people.
You
So
know,
go ahead.
this these I'm gonna throw UA out there. I'm gonna generalize, but I can't understand when I see them talking, like how they don't understand. See, nobody really had these lectures and talks with me where like I was blue in the face, like talking to a brick wall type stuff going on with me. So when, we've all been in Eurocentric Christianity churches. So what did they mean by come as you are? It was my understanding that you came to God just the way you was. You didn't make plans to go to church until you change this and you change that, and then I'll go and see about God in the church house. You were supposed to come as you are, and God would add unto you what he needed you to do or be to be pleasing in his sight. So why is it so hard for the UA community to understand that God has added something else onto our heart, in which was to abide by those dietary laws, to take away all these holidays, and live a more righteous life through the eyes of Christ?
Because they have been indoctrinated to be the modern day Inquisition squad. That's what
Right.
they are. That's what the UA is. They are the modern day Inquisition squad. And if you look into what Benaya Israel, shout out to him, and look into the other studies that go into the Spanish Inquisition, the before, during, and after, you see that it became outlawed for a Jew to call himself a Jew or herself a Jew. It was outlawed. We were being forced to convert to Christianity. And from that time on, Jews were not allowed to identify as being a Jew. So
I mean,
they
but do they really know what they, I mean, do they know what they doing? Do they know what role in the Bible that they playing? Like, do they know that? Like,
no,
we're seeing,
obviously they don't. They're under a great delusion.
we're sitting here reading Jasher, and the same events happen over and over again. And it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago that I realized while watching a movie that everybody doesn't root for the good guy. I mean, I've been watching movies my whole life. And I thought everybody was rooting for Superman. I thought everybody was rooting for Batman. I thought everybody was rooting for the X-Men. But no, there's people that root for the bad guy. It never dawned on me how how immature is that. But I just want to know, like, do when they read those scriptures, I mean, do they see themselves as the bad guy, and that's the team that they should be on?
Once again, I don't think they know what side that they really are on. I see it as they're under a great delusion, and that's the part that they're going to play.
Yeah.
And you know, only the Most High knows those that are going to repent and actually clock in and do the work properly. So
Right.
only He knows. Other than that, just like the parable of wheat and tares. And this is one I love going over, and it hits deep when people actually, catch it, that there are wheat and there are tares. And the servants of the Most High asked if they should remove the tares now. And he says, no, least you will uproot the good wheat along with it, for they are joined at the root. All right. So
Right.
this means that there are good people and there are bad people. And unfortunately, we're related to them. And when a bad person, like your knuckleheaded cousin, they keep cutting up all the daggone time, in and out of prison all the daggone time, and nobody wanna check them and get them right, or maybe they can't get right. Maybe it's just in them to be a
Right.
tear.
That
And when
part.
that tear gets taken, either shot in the streets or go to prison forever, the good wheat takes it personally because it doesn't understand that that person is a tear. That's my interpretation of it. And if I'm wrong, Most High will correct me, or somebody will bring a better wisdom to me. But that's what I get from that parable. There are good people and there are bad people, and we are related. We are joined at the root. And it's only through the faith of the Most High that the wheat that bows in submission to the Most High bears fruit. It has something to show. That's why it's wheat. Tares have nothing to bear. That's why they stand up proud. They have nothing to show for. And it's only by that fruit that the wheat bears, and the power and glory of the Most High Yah, that the wheat will give seed, or give a seed in the place of where that tear was. And through the word, surgically remove the roots of the tear from that place and allow the good wheat to actually grow in its place. So that tear is now wheat. And only the Most High can do that with his word. You know what I'm saying? And through the power of that he, by our obedience to him and the power of his word. So that's why we give him glory for all that he does for us. Because otherwise, there's still going to be a whole lot of chaff burning in that fire.
Right. And brother, just to go on with what you're saying and just piggyback on that real quick. That's why we're gonna be weeping. You know, that part just always gets me when I read that Joel 3, and it says that Judah we will be weeping. And in a sense of this, with the second Exodus up at hand, you know, we all go through this point to where like, yo, this second Exodus has happened, even all the way up to the point to where we think that this second Exodus is gonna be glorious. We know it's good for us, but we are gonna be weeping because a lot of people that we love and that we tried to witness to are going to be left behind. So when we sit there and think about this type of stuff, we got to be praying for our families, got to be praying for our daughters, got to be praying for our children, have to be praying for our parents, because in the sense of that, we don't we what he's going to do for us is going to be so great that, like Ezekiel said, that we're not going to deserve it. We're not going to deserve it. But in the same sense of that, we're going to still be crying because, even in the sense of that, a lot of people talk about this second Exodus, but my great, I call him my teacher, that's Pastor Darby. He said this once, and he said one day y'all gonna look on the news and see that they're gonna kick us out this nation, and a lot of people are gonna be thinking that this is gonna be a celebration and stuff like that. But it's gonna be some people is gonna be somebody gonna be just like that guy on Django, and we're gonna be hollering Calvin, Calvin, you know what I mean? And that part there, you know what I mean? Like, we're so attached to this nation, and it's not gonna be no celebration. We're gonna leave here weeping. He wrote it, and that's why it's so good to read this. We just haven't got to that point or that page yet, but we're gonna be weeping, because we're in the sense of that we sit here and think about our ancestors. We built this land. We say that all the time, and it's nothing to just leave your labor there. When we leave our labor, somebody could say, hey man, I'm ready to go and all that there. But when you sit there and think about whatever you build or whatever you did for that, you have some type of physical attachment to that. You know what I mean? You have some type of physical attachment to that. But when he destroys Babylon, and when you read that Joel, it is something about that part where he said, we will be crying, we will be weeping. Judah mourned, that part there. And that's what we got to be prayed up for, brothers and sisters.
Amen.
I definitely believe that. While we were on this live, my I'm the oldest of 8 children altogether, and my youngest, my middle sister called me or texted me, and she said, she was crying because of my little sister. My little sister had a stroke a few days after my awakening. Um, and this is our baby sister. She had a stroke in every part of her brain except for her frontal lobe. And my sister just texted me. She says, I don't know why this happened to her. And, luckily I'm in the spirit right now, and I'm just, I'm not in a mean mood. I'm not in a bad place. I'm very calm and I'm just enjoying the word. And I just said, sis, it was just probably because, you know, um, it was probably better for her to have this stroke than for her to die. My sister was really on a bad path. She was using drugs. She didn't have any, um, you know, gumption about her responsibilities. She just really wasn't living right. And, unfortunately, she doesn't have her balance anymore. She doesn't really talk very well. She still has her mind, though. You understand what I'm saying? So just because she has a mind that works perfectly fine and a body that does a whole lot of wobbling,
Hmm.
my sister could be dead. She could be brain dead. She could not be able to move or walk at all. But I'm just saying, with with the drugs she was using, this 2-week visit to the hospital could have been a permanent, you know, tombstone. So I'm just letting sis know that, this was probably better, and she's recovered. She's getting better and better every day. So, don't look at it in the saddest terms that you can think of. I'm just glad my sister is still here. I mean, and now that she don't talk too much and she don't get around too much, this is the same person that every time you saw her, she had her cell phone in her hand. She was definitely one of those. She was the popular kid. She knew everybody popular. No money, but she always traveling all over the place. You know what I'm saying? So God slowed her down, and I hope He slowed her down in time for her to get her own awakening, because she's not there yet. And I don't know if that's, a mental blockage or what. But all through again, two days after I had my awakening, she had this stroke, and I took care of her for 8 months. So all she been hearing is, Pastor Darby in the background, Dante Fortson, Teo Ministries, all this stuff, and all the stuff that I was learning, I was trying to regurgitate to her. But I honestly think she thought I was crazy. But hopefully she gets that awakening. Maybe God to make her still, so that she had the opportunity to get to know Him better.
Amen. Mm,
Amen.
I can only hope that we all find repentance, and grace through repentance. But
Yeah.
all right, family. Well, we took up almost an hour more than I really wanted to, but hey, all praise to the Most High Yah. His word being given, good
All
dialogue,
praise.
great dialogue, over the scriptures. So, with that being said, shalom, salama, siyemi, shalom, family abroad. And we'll see you here in the next couple of days. I got to get my schedule from work to see when I got the next day off. And hopefully we can all have that time off together and come back on and continue reading and whatnot. Cause I really like, this round table. I like how it's going. Um, I appreciate it.
All praise. All praise.
Shalom,
All
family.
right.
See you next time.
Shalom, family. Shalom, family. Shabbat shalom. I hope everybody had a great Shabbat. Um, we're just, when we're just here to just, read that word, we just want everybody to get a little piece of it. Read that word.
Amen. All right. We'll go ahead and back us on out and cue the music, and we'll see y'all next time.